Can't wait, man. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime, man. Okie dokie. With that, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass. Live and Lily Color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. And tonight I am joined by the legendary, the Horror Boy, or tonight, should I just call you Mikey Whipwreck? I don't know.
Mikey.
He's hardcore. He's hardcore. Mikey Whipwreck, what's going on tonight? How's your day, man?
It's been a really busy day. I just want to first of all apologize for being late to the stream. I was just doing a lot of running around, man. I just got back. It was a really hectic day, but I'm really excited to be here. And thank you for being patient with me, man. I really apologize for that.
Dude, don't even apologize. I love talking with you at any time, so that's cool. I was glad that we were able to get together and do this. You've had me on your channel so many times. I was like, yo, I really want Nate to come on. I really want to talk about whatever he wants to talk about. And I know you've been on a huge wrestling kick, and I know you're also, I believe, I don't know if you're television champion of All-Star Extreme Wrestling, or what is it? The TV champ? What exactly is the title?
It's basically our version of the IC belt. It's the Revolution Championship. It used to be the hardcore belt, but we wanted to change that because we were really just doing the 24/7 rule again. We're just like, oh, we want to do something kind of our own. And we were thinking like, oh, what about an IC belt or a US belt? And I was like, well, every company has that basically. But we knew we wanted like a workhorse belt. And so we were like, what's the theme song of our show? Because we used that song Revolution. You know, that, whoa, we want a revolution. We used to cover that.
That's a great song.
Yeah, we love it. I was like, why don't we just call it the Revolution Championship? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. So I won that. It was really good. It was a really good match. It was cool. And it's really interesting to see how I've went from like just this guy. I literally made that character in like 2 seconds. Like, I'll take these strings and I'll tie it to my head and I'll do this and I'll wear his gloves and I'll wear neon. It was like a 2-second thing, but it was fun, man. It was really fun. Revolution champion.
Yes, to the max, Nathan Max, brother. And you also, I think you have a T-shirt, which I'd love to buy one day. I would love to buy your official merch. If there's a link or anywhere we can find it, please let us know because I'd love to.
I definitely will. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. We always really appreciate all you guys' support to what we do. We just do it for fun, man. It's a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you support it, and I'm glad that you enjoy it, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like when you told me about it, I was like, wait, what? And initially they had you like carrying around a clipboard, almost like Deacon Batista. And I was like, look at this guy with the clipboard, and you were initially injured, and then they had you start working, and I was like, holy shit, that's my friend, man. And dude, it was just so cool. And you've worked some really good matches. I forget he's not. You're a little bit bigger than him. He's kind of tiny, but he can do some crazy shit. You worked with him when you had the world title, that Tyler something.
Yeah, Tyler Quinn. Yeah, he's one of our best wrestlers.
Fun ass matches. I was like, holy shit, this is some good stuff.
I'm an awful wrestler though. I just try to do the character portion. I'm a terrible wrestler, but you know, I just try, man. Because they were like, do you want to start doing this? And I was like, well, I don't know jack about doing wrestling, so I just kind of stood in there. I was like, well, what would I want to do? Well, I could do an elbow drop. I could do a barrel roll, you know, anything like that. I was thinking about crazy things, and I was like, well, maybe I don't have to be so technical. Maybe I can do little things here and there that will make it really unique, because I'm not fast. I'm not agile. But I'm like, well, maybe I could do a suicide dive here. Maybe that'll get people's attention. Or maybe I can take a hurricane, which, by the way, do not take a Hurricane Rana onto a ladder. I had that bright idea. I'm like, hey, that'd be a cool spot. People would be like, that'd be really cool, right? I took it. I'm like, oh, I wish I'd never did that. Oh, God. Oh, it's so painful.
Where did you land exactly? Like on your back, or did you land on your head? Hurricane Rana can go horribly wrong even on a mat, let alone a ladder. Yeah.
Most of the impact was on my lower back, and I actually still have a scar on my knee because my knee smacked the edge of the ladder, and it was legit bleeding because we use stage blood. We try not to really blade or use real stuff like that because we're just doing it for fun. But the busted blood was fake because I was busted open. But that was stage blood. We just hide that stuff. Yeah, I'm busted, man. I'm extreme busting heads. Nah, but the real cut was on my knee. I cut my knee really bad, and I was bruised from that match for like a good, I don't know, like at least 2 or 3 weeks. That was my most brutal one I've done so far. It hurt a lot.
Dude, I'm sure that's some crazy ass shit. Ty Junebug Films is in the Heezy, and Ty says, I know a great wrestling coach in my hometown in case you're interested in going to college in Kansas at Baker, Nate. So, yeah, so there's a wrestling coach waiting for you in Kansas, apparently. So, if you want to improve your skills a little bit, but I definitely, I've been entertained by all your matches. It was really, really cool. I thought I was just like, damn, like this is really, really cool. And like knowing you too is really cool. And talking psychology and ideas you had for the character. That's interesting as well. I think the character started more as a heel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now would you consider yourself more of a tweener or would you still be babyface? Like what was, yeah.
I kind of started out as like Kurt Angle, where I came in and I was really cheesy. I even did the 3Ps idea where it was, I didn't even, you know what's funny though? Is that I didn't even realize that Kurt Angle did the 3 eyes. Like I never really heard of. I've always just heard of Kurt Angle being the Olympic gold medalist. I didn't remember him being the 3 eyes thing. And then somebody told me like, it's funny that you debut and you're this all smiles dancing guy who says the cheesiest stuff, and you're saying the 3Ps. You're basically homaging Kurt Angle. And I was like, Kurt Angle did the 3Ps. Like he did the 3 eyes. I'm like, oh shit. I'm sorry. I didn't even really mean to do that. I swear to God. But it was just like something I threw together, man. Like at first I was a heel maybe because I was really annoying. It was like I was a super ultra positive guy. I was like, really, what's this guy talking about? Almost like Superman. Like, man, you're talking about all this stuff. Like, what do you mean? But I'm definitely more of a face now than I was then. But I have a lot of ideas that are coming up, new characters, new directions, and I'm gonna be trying to take on the heel persona soon. So we'll like total heel persona. So we're gonna see how that goes.
Yeah, I know you sent me some of your promo work working towards that, and I thought that stuff was very excellent. It actually reminded me of a little bit of Raven, which we'll be talking about him and plenty of other ECW
Very much like Raven.
Yes, I like that. And it's funny because you're so right. Like, you're such a positive, happy-go-lucky guy. Like, Ty Junebug's in the house. I know he's called you at times the John Candy of YouTube. And I think that's so spot on. Like, you are so much like the aura of John Candy. It's a very similar, like, overness to you, I think. And
I wish I had his talent, man. I'm not nearly as talented as that dude is. That dude's a freaking legend.
But I think it was smart to play you against type in that kind of thing. Like, let's start this guy as a heel. And because you would never expect it and you would never think that it would work, but you definitely make it work, I think. And I don't know, that can't be easy to do. Like we did for a school project, weirdly enough, we did like how to do a promo. And I wrote a program with like a triple threat. So a heel, babyface, and a tweener, like promoting a match. And I was the straight up heel. You know, you would probably expect me to be the straight up babyface, but I was like, I don't know, this is boring. Like, let me be bad.
I was gonna say, Grande, you're the babyface, man. You are the face, man.
God bless. And it's funny because like the tweener smacks me in the face, babyface throws me through the table, and then they both pick up the title. And it was this big contract. I don't know if I've ever sent that to you, but it's really, really funny. It's like it's the three of us. We all cut promos, and then at the end, I get bitch slapped and thrown through a table by my buddy Matt. And it was
really awesome
for a school project. My last project I did in college for pro communications, a 400 level class. That was the last thing we did. We had to submit like a thesis, and 30 theses were submitted, 36 theses, and she was going to take the best 6. And I was just like, oh, well, I just have to submit a thesis. So she's never going to fucking pick this. It was like how to do something. Some people did, you know, how to put together a proper fucking lettering format, how to put together a proper paper or whatever. And then mine was, I was like, yo, how to do a wrestling promo. And it was one of the 6 out of 36 picked. And I was like, holy shit. And
then, my God.
The rest was history. We got an A on it. It was a lot of fun, man. That was definitely testing out the creative juices, but I had a fun time doing that as well. Ty Junebug says, Nate, I think you are talented and You just need that right director that will work with you and make you a better actor. The world needs a new John Candy type, and I see you as it. Dude, that's high praise.
Thank you. Oh man, I appreciate it. I really do appreciate everything that you guys do, and that's really cool. If it's on video, man, send me that. I want to check that out. If you have any clips of it, man, I'll check that out.
I have the whole thing. It's like the whole thing. I basically walk everybody through what's a tweener, face, heel, and then we act out an entire like contract signing, and it all ends with me going through the table. Like it's a whole promo I wrote. I wrote the entire everybody's. I wrote the tweener. I wrote the heel. I wrote the baby face. And then, we all performed it live, and it was a lot of fun. It was tough for them because like they were not wrestling fans at all. Because like when they accepted my thesis, I was like, holy shit, now I have to do this.
He's like, oh,
with people that are like, what's wrestling? And I had to show the girl. I was like, you're going to be the tweener. She's like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, here, and I showed her a video of Stone Cold and Stacy Keibler. And he's like, drink the beer. And she keeps going, no, like she's too petite for beer. And then eventually he kicks her in the stomach, hits her with the stunner. And I showed her, I said, look how all the people cheer. I say, think about what he just did. He just assaulted a woman live on television, and millions upon millions are cheering him. I said, that's a tweener. You assault a woman, that's considered something a heel would do. But everybody's cheering you, that's something a babyface gets. So it was like trying to teach people no pun intended, the ropes of the professional wrestling business. So I mean that was a fun ass project to do. I'll definitely send it to you. It was a good
time. I'll check that out. That sounds like fun, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you ace it, bro?
We did.
You aced it. That's fucking badass.
Yeah, I was like, dude, what better way to go out of college and finish my school career than go through a fucking table and get an A?
Does the Ric Flair retirement walk just see you guys?
I remember, like, I'll never forget going to class that day and being like, how fucking stupid is this? My whole life is a joke, like that, but it's a fucking funny one.
That's fucking amazing, dude. I
mean that in the best way. Like it's just such a joke. Like most people, they're like, "Oh my god, my English final," and I'm just here like, "All right, Matt, I'm gonna get bitch slapped and go throw my fat ass through a table, and we're just gonna hand it to the teacher and say, here you go," And we fucking did. It's just, I don't know. It never ceases to amaze. Like if someone had filmed my reaction to when. Like I got the email saying, I love your thesis. We're going to pick it as one of the 36. I was like, wait, what? Like shocked, completely shocked. And I still am. But I don't know. It was pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I've always thought it'd be really interesting to do that. Like, cause when I was like in middle school, I remember I tried out for the wrestling team. And of course my dumbass back then thought wrestling was like what I saw on TV. And
did you go there with like tassels on your head and shit?
I walked in and I was like, okay, where's the microphones? Where's the tables? Where's the ring? I was like, where the fuck is the ring? Because they're like, here's the mat. I'm like, okay, what is this? Where's the ring at? Like, where's the ropes? They're like, what do you mean ropes? I'm like, it was like the fucking craziest thing, man. And then like it was, first of all, it was the hardest training I've ever been through in my entire life. It was like over here running up and down stairs. I'm like, this isn't running on the ropes. This is running up and down.
This ain't wrestling. This is wrestling. I wanted to go to wrestling, by God.
Yeah, right, exactly. I say it wrong. I said wrestling, man. It was like so like fucking hoodwinked, man. I was like, what the fuck happened, man? Like I was just like, I got there, man, and it was just like really intense. Like I've done like sports workouts before, but that's like the most intense one I think I've ever done. Like, I almost threw up, and I was like, yeah, first day it was like really intense, and like it's definitely not what I thought it was gonna be.
Wow, yeah, no, that's fucking hilarious, dude.
Yeah. They were even like, you do realize this is real wrestling, right? I'm like, what do you mean real wrestling, bud? This is, real wrestling, right? Where's the table? Where's the sledgehammers? Where's the kendo sticks? They're like, listen, bud, okay, we're going to sit you down and show you some tapes. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, you're going to show me some tapes of like Shawn Michaels, right? Bret Hart? Right. Dude, no, what would have been really funny if you showed up to like the first meet and they were like, bro, you ready for your first match? And you just fucking walk in with like a chair and be like, sure. And they'd be like, "Is that to sit down?" And you'd be like, "No." And then the bell rings, you grab it, just whack the guy over the head with it. And the referee,
my God,
assault! He's hardcore. He's hardcore.
Count,
Dude,
ref, count. What is the last man standing match, right?
you poke his leg, and the ref's like, "What the fuck?
What am I supposed to do here?
Yeah, I know. Oh my God, dude, that's fucking hilarious. There's actually a wrestling school right here, like less than 10 minutes from my house. That Kurt Hawkins is the teacher at it.
Oh, what? Are you for real?
For real. Yes.
That's fucking awesome, man.
It's wild, man. If I ever wanted to become a wrestler, I could go right there to school and see if they could train me. I'm a good promo. I think I'd be a good manager. As far as physical
you got that charisma, man. You got that factor, bro. I think even we could go on commentary. Like even commentary, you'd bring it. On promo cutting, you'd bring it. A manager, you could do all that, man. And even like for your size, you could be a good wrestler too. So you could put that all together, man, and become the Grandmaster.
I have an ECW takeoff shirt. It says John effing Grande on it. I can't find it for the life of me. I wear it in that video where I got put through the table. So it has to be somewhere, but I looked all day, couldn't find it. So I was like, all right, I just have to go with this Day of the Dead shirt. But I wanted so badly to wear that on here just because it was ECW reference. But yeah, no, that's fucking neither here nor there. But yo, man, I would totally. And Ty Junebug agrees. He says, I actually think you would be a good manager. You have a great mic skills because, again, you're the most charismatic guy on YouTube. Oh, I'm going to start crying like Nate.
Oh, yeah, for real. He's not lying, man. You're freaking awesome. Your personality is just, you draw people to your channel, man, just to your energy, man. You got a lot of positive energy. It's like it'd be great for you bring that to someone. Maybe if you were a manager and let's say someone wasn't good in the microphone, you could bring people to that person and gravitate towards them more,
Yeah, I remember me and my buddy Brandon, we had a long time period in our like friendships where we really didn't talk too much, unfortunately. And I remember freshman year of college, he called me and was like, "Hey man, I'm looking to get into the indies." And I was like, "No way." And he was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I want to do it." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "That's awesome. Like, what do you call me about?" And he was like, "Dude," he said, "I'm not going to be able to do a promo." He said, and he's a big dude. I mean, he can deadlift like a truck. Like the guy is so big, but he had no idea creatively what to do. He was like, "Could you possibly write me a character name and be my manager if I ever debut?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I actually sat down that night instead of doing homework and being productive at my security job. I fucking wrote out an entire character for him, and I called it Mike Broadway, and it was like a lame like 1990s WWF heel type of character that believed his shit didn't stink and was all about Hollywood and Broadway and all this shit. And like, it would have been really funny if he ever had made it. He didn't end up making it. He like couldn't get the work down in the ring. But imagine if had he ever debuted, I would have definitely been his manager. And I was telling him all the psychology and stuff like that, because some people, they're fans of it, but I don't know if they really appreciate the, dearth that goes into it at times. And, thankfully, that really helped us rekindle our friendship, if for nothing else. So I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's really cool. And I think that's like the hardest part about wrestling is like there's so many factors to it, and so I approach it like even when I do, and I don't even really consider myself a wrestler because I'm awful at it, but whatever I do when we do those shows is I'm like, okay, all these guys are way more athletic than me and they're way more agile than me. I'm like, what can I do? Like, well, maybe I can work on these other. It's kind of like really enough. We're talking about ECW. It's taking the positives and exaggerating them and hiding the negatives. So I try to do that too. And I have a Mick Foley mindset. I have a very bad Mick Foley mindset where I'm like, hey, maybe if I took this bump, it'd be memorable and people would be looking at it and go, oh, it's so cool. And it's gotten me in like a lot of places from like, hey, I'll just take that bump off a tree or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I regret that.
Yeah, that's why I love Mick Foley though, because Mick Foley is a tragic hero. Like Mick Foley, there was nothing he wouldn't do to make us believe and remember him. And that's why Mick Foley's one of my favorite of all time. And he to this day just demands the most respect in the world, because he really gave his life to the business. I mean, the guy, if you look at him now, he can't put his socks on by himself. Like his wife every morning helps him put his socks and shoes on. And like I know some people go,
Yeah.
this is fake and this is phony, baloney, whatever. I say, look at that guy. He gave his entire life to it, and people will still call him a phony. I don't respect people that don't respect the business. I really don't. Like you can not like it all you want, but to disrespect something that guy worked so hard for, and for what he did to put not only food on the table, but to make himself a star in not just the WWE, but the ECW and even WCW back when he was Cactus Jack, working guys like Sting. I mean, I think it's just something you can't under exaggerate. The guy was money and gave it all to the biz.
That's why he's like one of my top 5 favorite superstars. And I mean, like the wrestling life, I mean, it's even though it's not like actual people getting there and fist fighting and stuff like that, it's kind of really not meant to be that. I never understood that argument because it's like, well, it's not meant to be like that. Like it's like confusing 28 Days Later The Walking Dead. Well, why aren't those zombies walking? Well, because first of all, they're not zombies; they're infected people. Which people I consider them zombies, but that's the argument most people would say is like, oh, we're not zombies. And it's like different things. And it's like it's always come down to UFC and WWE. It's like, to me, they're two different things. When you compare them, they're almost uncomparable. The only thing is that maybe some guys in the roster or girls use like judo and use like karate and like their moves and stuff like that, but they don't actually connect with any of the stuff. But that's pretty much it. I mean, UFC is one thing, wrestling's another. And I get it. UFC is more, it is definitely real. Like they're getting there and they're fighting, but like the wrestling lifestyle, it's not fake. Cause like it's always, you watch it, you're like, oh, there's fake chairs. They're just aluminum, fake everything. You know, the tables are fake. Everything's fake. And it's like, nah, most of that stuff that you see is real. And to take a back bump on solid canvas or solid floor and do that, not even back bumps, like major bumps, just night after night after night, and like just giving your whole life to it, man. It's just such a brutal lifestyle, but it's definitely an art. I think it's an art that needs to be appreciated.
I agree. I think that it's just a shame that it will pretty much always get a bad rap for whatever reason. And you know, I in the back of my head, I wanted to ask you about UFC towards the end of the show, but since you bring it up, I guess we could ask it right now. Do you, in a lot of ways, think that UFC, like, what are your thoughts on UFC? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Like part of me, I respect it. I respect how tough the people are, and I respect the style and art of mixed martial arts. But I definitely don't find it as watchable to me as WWE, like, or well, not even WWE right now, but wrestling overall. Like, if you came up to me and said, you want to watch the latest, greatest, biggest UFC pay-per-view, or do you want to watch Barely Legal 97? Honestly, I'm taking Barely Legal 97, even though I've seen it. Like, UFC has never made me feel like wrestling has, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on UFC?
Yeah, I mean, I love combat sports. I love Bellator, MMA, UFC, kickboxing, boxing. I love that stuff, but I feel like if we're talking about just strictly UFC, I feel like it's kind of, you know what you're going to get. Like if you get a pay-per-view from UFC, it's going to be pre-match fight, conference, couple of interviews here and there. Then you're going to get your fight and your post-match conference. You're going to get another fight and then a post-match conference. Like you kind of know what you're going to get. And like, and really honestly, besides like the last fight that I got really hyped for was like basically anything involving Conor McGregor. It was like Khabib's fight, Diaz's fight with him, the recent fight he just had, like a Cowboy Cerrone fight. I want to say he just fought somebody recently. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember right now, but
Poirier?
Huh?
Was it Poirier?
Yeah. I think it was his second fight, right, with Dustin Poirier.
Yeah,
I think that's like a second fight.
I don't know if I pronounced that wrong or not. French names are so weird to pronounce.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I don't even know really how to pronounce. I just say Poirier, you know. But I like it, but I watch wrestling a whole lot more than UFC. I could say that, and I feel like UFC also does kind of borrow as far as them hyping up fights. They take a wrestling approach to hyping up a fight, as
Yes.
far as vignettes and promos and all that stuff. They do that too. Maybe not vignettes, but they do promote their fights similar to how WWE does it. And I don't know. I would say wrestling, I feel like, is a little bit more entertaining. It's more of a show. It's more of entertaining, it's entertainment is what I should say. But I like it, just not as much as pro wrestling, personally. That's just personal for me, though.
I'm the same way. And I think the promos are way weaker in UFC. Like, they all just curse. Like, that's it. Like, Conor McGregor is Ric Flair, but if Ric Flair cursed and was kind of a one-note thing, and whereas Ric Flair was... How many great promos did that guy cut over the years? It's just
so many great ones, man, like legendary ones.
Yeah, it's absurd. He made so many people. I don't know. I'm the same way. Like, I respect UFC. I'm just not a big fan of it. Like, I know some people just, they can't get enough of it. I'm just not one of those people. Like, I watch it. I'll sit down and watch it if somebody buys a pay-per-view and is like, hey, you want to come through? But I don't know. I don't go crazy about it. But I guess we can get in. We've been going on and on for like intro talk for a while.
Oh shit.
Yeah. I guess we can get on with the topic at hand. I'm sorry. See, sometimes when I talk with you, I like time.
No, it's fine, man. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I do a lot of talking, man. I just blah blah blah.
So do I. It's not. It's just like, I don't know. I think what thing was with you and me though, we could probably talk about anything, and like people would probably be interested in it. Like,
yeah, man.
We got a good chemistry.
Hang out, man. Chill, hang out, man. I'm gonna talk about anything.
Absolutely. But I guess that brings us to the topic at hand tonight, and is none other than ECW Barley Legal 1997, the first ever pay-per-view that the ECW company would put out. Nate's got the DVD. That is fucking insanely awesome. I don't have it, unfortunately. Oh, man, that's sick.
Uncensored, untouched. No, it's all original music. All the original blood. Man, so glad to own that. I really am. Because if you watch ECW on the network, it's definitely, I would say it's definitely a lot different than watching it like live or watching the actual produced DVDs by him.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with that completely. But I guess before we get into the pay-per-view itself, I guess it would be more fun to kind of go back, and if you even want to show off your ECW collection and your fandom of ECW, please do, because I know you got a ton of good stuff to show. And
I will.
A little bit of the background.
Let's go turn my fan on real quick. It's hot in here. It's like 90 degrees.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. He's got, okay. And Ty says, well, UFC could be better if they go back to the Attitude Era Wrestling and you turn that into a new version of UFC. Yeah, no, UFC draws way more to people that aren't wrestling fans. Like, I know so many people that fucking don't like pro wrestling that love UFC. And I just laugh. They're like, oh, Conor McGregor's one of the greatest promos. I'm like, dude, you don't know a great promo then. I'm sorry. Like, I get that's their opinion. I respect it, but that's not a great promo. It's not. It's just not.
Sorry about that. It was hot in here. I was over here like sweating bullets. Like, yeah, it's extreme.
You were sweating balls, Mahoney?
Yeah. Freaking balls were down there like, it's up here, bro.
Balls, balls, balls. That's one of my favorite chants ever.
Him with the chair shots. You see him with the chair shots. Oh, my God, dude. Oh, some of the most brutal chair shots I've ever seen is from him.
Yeah, no, Balls didn't play around, man. Balls Mahoney was just a crazy motherfucker. But dude, what are some of the things that got you into ECW? And let's get into the origin of how the extreme part of it started.
Honestly, it goes back to before even this ECW. It was like, okay, so when I was like, man, it's a while ago. I had to be like 8 or 9 when I seen this, but I was on Sci-Fi and ECW was on, and that ECW is not. That's WWE ECW. It's not really I don't consider that ECW. I really don't. It's a very watered down ECW.
It is, and I have something from it, so keep talking, but I'm gonna grab it.
Okay. Oh, that's badass. Oh, don't tell me you have November to or December to dismember. Oh.
No, I do though. I do have that too.
Oh no, I'm sorry, John. No, but I watched that and I was like, what's this ECW? What, there's barbed wire? It's cool. And I really got into it. And of course, as everybody knows, ECW on like WWE's ECW on Sci-Fi didn't really last that long. So I stopped watching it and I kind of fell off ECW for a minute. And I always heard about ECW, but I never really got into it when I was younger. I was always like, I just knew about ECW. I didn't really know what it meant. Obviously, it was extreme, but I didn't really know much about it. And then along came me checking out this. And this really, really hooked me into ECW. When I seen this, which by the way is one of the best documentaries you can watch, I was like, what? How did I miss this? Like, what is the story? I want to know more. And so I watched more and I got the network and I started watching old school ECW all the way back in 93 when it was just Eastern Championship Wrestling and, you know, watching it go from, you know, NWA's wrestling to actual Extreme Championship Wrestling and watching that go. And I've seen stuff like, I think I watched Living Dangerously, WrestlePalooza. I watched one of those. I watched obviously Barely Legal, talk about tonight, and I watched one other thing. It might have been November to Remember. I think I seen that one too.
That's a great show.
Yeah, dude, they were all really good, and like I really got into it because I'm over here watching WWE, and I'm like, dude, this is not. I'm not liking this at all. Like, it's nothing relatable as a wrestling fan to watch WWE. And then you get on, and you're like, they do have NXT. They do have which back then there was no AEW. It was just NXT and maybe TNA. I would watch it once in a while, but NXT was the only thing that I really watched that made me go, okay, this is pro wrestling. This is what I really like, and I'm really into it. And then I'm watching this, and you have them doing revolutionary stuff like bringing in cruiserweights and bringing in guys from Japan and bringing in people from the Mexico scene, bringing people in from all over the place. And you could tell it was a show for the fans. And if you were a pro wrestling fan, especially back in the day, like this was how a lot of people seen stuff back then. Because, I mean, besides cable, it was what, tapes, maybe?
Tape trading.
And and going there live, I mean, that was probably the only ways you could have heard about this stuff. So it was really cool, man. And that's kind of when I got into ECW heavily, was when I watched that documentary, and it really opened my eyes to this great thing that I didn't realize before. I just thought, oh, it's just barbed wire and chair shots and tables. Like, that's literally all I thought it was. I'm like, that's all it is hardcore wrestling. It's a lot more than that, though, if you really dig into it.
Yeah, I completely. And by the way, Corey's in the house. So hi, Corey.
What's up, Corey?
Door and the Heezy with these Sezzy sectional couch people. Well, I would agree with that. We are pretty Sezzy sectional couch people. That's a pretty good way to describe us. But
that's fucking great.
Going back to what you were saying about that documentary, that's really what made me more of a fan of it as well. I remember stumbling across that, I believe, at a Walmart. I've since sold my copy because that's when they announced the network, and I was like, oh my God, let me sell off my wrestling DVDs. Bad fucking decision at the end of the day. I was happy with the money at the time. I sorely regret it now that Peacock has taken over the land. But I remember watching that documentary and absolutely being floored by it. To me, that documentary and Crystal Lake Memories are the two greatest documentaries I've ever watched. Like, for my money, those are the two best ones. And ECW, the Rise and Fall of ECW, I think to this day is WWE's #1 selling DVD they've ever released. And it's not anything to do with their promotion. Like, that's just fucking wild when you think about it. Like, they probably were just like, just as we'll throw it out there, biggest seller of all time in there.
Yeah. I think even to this day, it's still, if not the highest selling, it's like still like number 2 or 3. It's like up there. It's one of the highest selling things they've ever released. And it is funny because, like, it just shows you that maybe if, like, let's say the internet picked up a lot faster than it did. Like, let's say, like, because they had internet back then, but they didn't have it to where it was like social media and YouTube and all this different stuff. It was like they could do like live shows here and there. But just imagine if they were able to get that following online and get Patreon and get all the other ways to fund their shows, and they keep it going. And I feel like ECW would still be around to this day, because the only thing that really killed ECW was bad management of the money and them not able to get another TV deal. And without a TV deal, you don't get sponsors. Without sponsors, you don't get funds. And it's really sad, because you look back on WCW, and you can see why that company died, because it was really getting bad. And it's kind of deja vu with WWE, where I'm watching it sometimes. I'm like, this reminds me of like 1999 WCW, like some stuff I'm seeing on that. And it's just sad when you watch ECW and how it kind of went downhill, because it was still going strong. I mean, you had Rhino as a champion, you had RVD in there still. And, well, I don't know if by then you had RVD, but I know you had like Rhino in there. You had like a lot of these guys that stuck around, and it just ran out of money, man. It's a sad thing.
They also, which is the weirdest thing about ECW, is their most successful financial year was the last year they were in business. That's the year they raked in the most money overall. The year 2000, they had the video game for PlayStation 1. They had, I think they had a couple pay-per-views. That was their most successful year. It was the year they went out of business. I don't think any other company, to my knowledge, went out of business in the year that they were most successfully financial. And I just find that flabbergasting. Like, it's just so crazy. But it just goes to show that, you know, as great of a creative mind as Paulie was, and we're going to get into all the great things that Paulie gave to us. And I think, for my money, he's the greatest creative mind the business ever saw. Like, I would actually go and say that.
Hell yeah.
I just think at the end of the day, he just wasn't a great businessman. I almost wish he had hired somebody else to just deal with that stuff, that knew what they were doing. But I think at the end of the day, it was really Paul's baby. And it's so hard. It's easy for us to say you should have got somebody else. But when it's your baby, it's really hard to kind of swallow your pride. And I think that Paul Heyman, in a lot of ways, didn't want to swallow his pride. But he was such a great motivator that he could get these wrestlers to work for bounce checks. I mean, Tommy Dreamer said he'd work times and he would have checks that would bounce. And he was constantly lied to by Paulie. But it was the kind of mentality that Paul Heyman gave to them, saying, like, I know that you're working for a lot less money, but we're going to prove them wrong, and you're going to prove me right. And that whole ideology, I think, is what ECW is all about. It's the never say die. It's the never say never. And it's the, let's tell people, you know, that we're not wrong. We'll tell them that they're wrong. And there's nothing that could stop the willpower of the roster of Extreme Championship Wrestling. That's why I love it. I think it's just such a really cool promotion. It just gives me like goosebumps talking about it, man.
It's a really good story, man. Like, that's the documentary really opened my eyes. Like, wow, it started out as something so it was something that was destined to fail. I mean, the talent wasn't there yet. I mean, maybe you had Sandman, maybe you had guys from like the NWA that would come in occasionally, like Jimmy Snuka, or I remember like the standout guys to me were like, okay, there was a decent guy named Glenn Osborne. He was pretty decent. And I do remember Terry Funk having a little bit to do with that company. But like back in 93, I mean, it was just another NWA subdivision, just, you know, Eastern Championship Wrestling. It was never really meant to get off the ground as much as it ended up becoming a household name. I mean, pretty much everybody knows about ECW now. And without Paul Heyman coming in and doing what he did, I feel like it would have been just another promotion that would have fizzled out eventually. But I just freaking love the way he looked at it and went, man, wrestling's in the shitter right now. Like, look at what we have on TV. And he wanted to give it the Nirvana treatment. And that's such a genius way to do that, because at the same time, that's like why I love the 90s, because at that time you had so many things changing. You know, the 80s was done and it was time to move into something different. something more MTV, something more realistic and more raw and more extreme. And that was a big word back then, was extreme. You know, it was like extreme hardcore rock was starting to get more popular. Extreme wrestling, extreme fighting, all that stuff was like getting more popular. So ECW fit right in, man, with the culture.
Yeah, and I love how Paul Heyman and you just said it right now, where Nirvana was the answer to the death of 80s hair bands, and Scream was the Nirvana of horror movies dying, like Freddy, Jason, Michael, all really having lackluster efforts in the early half of the 90s. That came along and in a way was Nirvana for horror, whether you like it or not. It did change the game. ECW was that for wrestling. It was the shot in the arm that the business needed. And while you were saying how this was just another regional NWA class division, it was almost that kind of promotion had that stigma to it. It was like, oh, you're just another one of those. And the only way really to break out of that was Paul Heyman pretty much disrespecting and flipping off the entire region when the franchise Shane Douglas, I believe he defeated Too Cold Scorpio.
Yep.
Believe that? I was so upset I couldn't find the documentary online for free. I listened to a podcast about this pay-per-view, which that was really cool because it refreshed my mind on everything. But I believe he defeated Too Cold Scorpio, and he cuts one of my favorite promos in the history of the business because all of the lineage that came with this title, he didn't care. And with WWE, they're always like, oh, Pedro Morales, oh, Bruno Sammartino, they go on. And basically what Shane Douglas did was screw that. Screw all the guys that came before me and held this title. This is my title now. And
this is the franchise time.
Yes, this is the franchise. And this is the birth of the ECW. It's not Eastern Championship Wrestling. It's not a region anymore. This is Extreme Championship Wrestling. And in a lot of ways, that was the shot heard around the world, for lack of a better term. I mean, that put them on the map when it came to an attitude, which is a funny play on words considering what would go on to happen later with the WWF. But it gave wrestling an attitude again. It gave wrestling an identity again. And I think that's exactly the shot in the arm that the business needed. And Paul Heyman, from there on, it was just basically like, we're off to the races. And I appreciate he did that because it was ballsy. And the people that co-owned Eastern Championship Wrestling, they weren't in on it. They didn't know that Shane Douglas was going to go out there.
That was a shoot. That was all. I think maybe 3 people knew about that. And that was like maybe the ref, Paul, and Shane. And
I think him, Todd Gordon, and Shane Douglas. I don't even know if the referee knew. I don't even know if Too Cold Scorpio knew.
Yeah, very few people knew. It was like a very hush-hush thing. But Paul Heyman knew that's okay. How do we? That's the genius. I will admit, Paul Heyman did a lot of things in ECW. Like, you'd say, like, wow, like, really, you would do that? But the guy, I will admit, was very smart, and he definitely was a genius in the fact of how do we get this promotion off the ground? How do we gain traction? Well, we need something extreme. We need something alternative from what's going on in the other stations. And the most important thing about that is how do we get credibility? How do we get that spark to light us to where we...
Uh-oh. Nate froze. Unless I'm frozen. Am I frozen? Uh-oh. Ty, I see your comment. I think I'm still here. Nate froze. Okay, I think it's Nate that froze. I agree, though. I would love to see who play. Okay, he's back.
Am I back?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. You just froze.
Yeah, my screen like blacked out for a second. I'm like, what the heck?
But go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't know why it interrupted you, but
no, you're fine. Where did I get cut off at?
You were just going into like about Paul Heyman and being a genius and stuff.
Oh,
like
that. Yeah, man. Like, just how doing this and this is why I wish people like AEW and like TNA and WWE would do stuff like this more. Like, the best stuff in wrestling to me, the best storylines, the best drama, the best angles always have a little bit of reality put into them. Not totally real, but you put that little bit of reality in there to where you make the audience go, is this real or is it fake? You can't tell if it's a story or is it real. And I feel like this was that moment where the audience was like, this man just stood on the NWA championship, and like this is like one of the most prized possessions in wrestling. And when he did that, man, it just, what is this? This is so cool. It's the franchise. It's ECW. He's putting ECW over NWA. What is this? And it was like genius that they were able to do that. And it's brilliant. Brilliant.
It's so smart because, like, how many times have we seen somebody win the title, and whether it be a babyface or a heel, you get usually the same reaction. You get the waterworks, I've worked my whole life for this moment, and now my name is on Dusty Rhodes' title. It's on Ric Flair's title. It's cliche. It's almost cliche to be like, I'm happy to be the champion. Whereas Shane Douglas threw it down and said, I'm better than this belt. This belt is beneath me. Literally, he throws it on the ground. It's every champion hold the belt up. He throws it on the ground like it's a piece of fucking
just
dog
imagine
shit.
this is back in the kayfabe days, John. This is back when people thought wrestling was still real.
Yes.
And can you imagine being in that arena thinking that shit is real?
The people who own the company fucking freaked out, and like they were interviewed after and were like, what happened tonight was a disgrace. I'm ashamed of it. Shane Douglas is the champion, whether he likes it or not, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, you marks, you don't get it. They just changed the fucking game on you, man. And whereas I understand, like, okay, if I was in that guy's shoes and I didn't know that was going to happen, I'd be fucking upset too. Like, realistically. But had they come to me and said, I want to try this. This is something we're going to try. Can we have your blessing? If you explained it to me beforehand, I would have been all for it. But maybe they knew that that guy wouldn't be. And then thus not letting that happen. So you pretty much had to let that go under the radar. And that was another thing that ECW was super, you know, whether for better or for worse, whether we get to the mass transit incident, was letting stuff go under the radar and letting stuff go on without approval. You know, this was one of those times where it worked out well. Mass transit was the polar opposite. And actually, you know, that almost stopped this pay-per-view from ever happening, the whole mass transit thing. We can get into that. But before, I did grab this stuff. I just want to briefly show this. First of all, I do have it. This is the only
God
I have. How funny is that? Funny enough, too, when I open it up, the DVD is in here, right? A little booklet or whatever. Also, there is a bootleg of WrestleMania 24. How cool is that? I thought that was pretty funny. I don't know why it's in here. I don't know why I just decided to throw it in with this, because that's a lot better pay-per-view than fucking this piece of shit, which actually got Paul Heyman fired. This is like the most interesting fucking shitty pay-per-view of all time. This might be the worst pay-per-view of all time. It's up there with shit like some of the WCW, like the later WCW ones. Like,
it could have been good though. Like, it had potential. I mean, and if they wanted to have an Extreme Elimination Chamber, I'm over here. Whenever I hear that, I'm like, genius.
Yes.
Because put the chains, make them barbed wire, put it to where if you land on the outside, maybe there's like thumbtacks on the outside, and maybe the pods are actual glass, they break. You think of stuff like that, like, oh, that's so much with it. And then you get to the actual match, and they're like, we're just going to tie some kendo sticks up here.
It was just really, that match was just booked really poorly. Like, they had the talent to make that a good match. It was, you could clearly tell Vince booked that match.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with it. Like, it was too WWE.
Yeah.
And that's really what the problem with this whole ECW thing. Also, another funny thing, there's only 2 matches listed on the back. They'd have
everything else they forgot about.
There's 2 matches, which there's not. There's just
they're like, we're not going to mention the other stuff.
Yeah, no, we're not going to mention the other stuff. But this is another one. This one, it's pretty cool to have because it's actually signed by him. But it goes to show you how big of a CM Punk fan I am, because this is back when he was really a nobody, and I thought he would never win a world title. This is CM Punk signed ECW champion picture.
What?
I bought this back in the day. He visited the mall right by my house. Of course, I had to fucking go to my sister's like softball tournament, so I couldn't go and meet him in person. But they had extras, like he signed extra ones, and then my dad paid like the $20. That's how cheap it was back in the day to get autographs, $20. And I have this framed, and it's in my man cave to this day, right next to my picture of Steve Dash from Friday 13th Part 2. I have this signed autograph picture of CM Punk, which is my favorite wrestler of all time. So I know these two like WWE, ECW related things, but I did go grab them. So I don't know. I figured.
How was he meeting him?
I didn't get to meet him, unfortunately. I had to go to my sister's softball game, and what he did was he signed these photos for them to sell later.
Oh, okay.
And I got this later. He was at the mall that day. I was like, I'm going to meet CM Punk. And then I remember my dad was like, dude, I'm so sorry. We have to go to her game. You know, we have to drive her to her game. And I was like, fuck.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean now.
I never got to meet him, but I did get to, we went the next day and they had leftover copies. So it is still really cool that I got the autograph picture. I would love to meet him someday, but he's a lot of money to meet, unfortunately.
Actually, if you give me a minute, I can get some WWE, ECW. I forgot some DVDs over there.
Yeah, I have some indie stuff here too, so I'll grab it in the meantime while you're grabbing it too. It's funny, I have so much indie stuff, but I don't have too much ECW stuff.
I forgot. I put the WWE, ECW stuff somewhere else. I categorized them differently for some reason, even though. I mean, I don't know. I would still consider One Night Stand pretty much ECW.
Yeah, even the second year of ECW One Night Stand was really good with Van Dam and Cena. Like, that's a good fucking pay-per-view too. The first one's one of my favorite pay-per-views ever. ECW knew how to put on a great show, man.
I mean, that first one was pretty much ECW.
Yeah, the only thing with that first one is it's like the fucking in WWE involvement, like all the WWE guys were there, but it was done so well because ECW went over.
I think the second one was more for them to try to promote ECW and sci-fi, right?
Yes, yeah. I have so much shit, but I can't find it. Like,
I found 05.
That's the main one. That's like a great pay-per-view. I'm looking for. I have some Ring of Honor shit. Here's IWA. Oh no, that's WrestleMania. What the heck? There's so much shit down here. It's just like I have to organize it better. I'm not sure. I had it. I don't know where it is now.
Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor.
I hate to come back empty-handed, but I think this is going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Keep on rolling, baby.
One Night Stand 08. I have that one. That was WWE, though. I have a lot of WWE bullshit.
That match, I want to see right here. It's Mike Awesome match.
Mike Awesome versus Masahiro Tanaka or something?
Yeah, dude, that match was crazy.
Dude, that's 10 minutes of one of the best wars you'll ever fucking see.
Yeah, I was like watching, like, holy shit. They were actually punching each other and shit, and like they were snug, man, real snug.
I'm
like,
chair shots in those matches are fucking wild. There's one where fucking Mike Awesome jumps out of the ring and fucking Tanaka just wham right to his fucking head, dog. Like, if Tanaka doesn't have brain damage now, I don't know, like how. Like it's just fucking wild. Like it's.
I was gonna say I don't know how not. That shit was, bro. Sabu, when he chair shotted Rey Mysterio, you could hear it through the whole arena. I was like, fuck, dude.
Oh, and the DDT through the table to finish. That's a really, really fun finish. Ty Junebug was
so cool.
Great thing is I used to be really interesting, and I just kind of grew out of it. But you guys had me find my love again by you guys talking about it. Yeah, no, that's the fun of this too. Like just like because like I've done 100 episodes of this, and all of them been horror. So to have Nate come on and do episode 101 about wrestling, I think is really, really fun. So I
refreshing. We're getting extreme.
extreme. No doubt. Did you show the DVDs off? I was up there looking. I have a ton of ROH stuff, but I can't find it. Okay, you showed them off. The first one's great. That first pay-per-view and Hammerstein Ballroom and fucking, oh my God, the crowd was going nuts. And the Paul Heyman promo of the only reason you were WWE champion for a year is because Triple H didn't want to work Tuesdays. Oh shit. JBL's writing the bounce checks. Like JBL's like, bounce. He's writing the bounce checks. That second show is good too. I know Kurt Angle just did his recent podcast about the match he had with Randy Orton on that show.
Yeah, and I want to check it. You sent me a clip from it. Yeah, I want to watch the actual. Does he do it on YouTube or does it on like a podcast site, like just podcast sites or?
Yeah, he does it on podcast sites. He uploads like clips of it to his Instagram. But it's really, really cool stuff. Like I really enjoy listening to Kurt because Kurt's really underrated, and Kurt has a funny fucking ECW story. Weirdly enough, it's kind of like I don't know where to go. Like there's so much we could talk about.
Yeah, there's so many lanes in ECW you could talk about. That's what's so great about it, man.
And they're all funny. Like they're all fucked up and funny. Like all of them. Like there's no like short selling any of it. But going back to that the documentary. What I love about it is how they spent so much individual time on each guy. Like it wasn't like WWE. Sometimes they just focus on the main. Like they don't ever talk about there was an Intercontinental Champion at this time, and no, like they're talking about Hulk and Andre. They're talking about, and rightfully so. I mean, I love them too, but I love that they actually spent time in that documentary to talk about Mikey Whipwreck. They spent time to talk about Al Snow and how Al Snow got a fucking mannequin head over. What does everybody want? Head. What does everybody need? Head. And how people would actually kind of organically get over with the crowd. And you see that happen to this day in WWE and even AEW. Only problem is WWE is never smart enough to run with it. Like,
they're like, he got over.
That Paul Heyman would have just made a star in 2 minutes.
Yeah. They're like, he got over. We'll just bury him. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, take him off TV. He's over. Take him off TV. Rusev Day? Huh. Burn the shirts. Take him off television. Release him. You can't have
Balor. Send him back to NXT.
Oh my God, that's a disgrace, man. It's just a disgrace. But it's funny, like how over a guy walking out with a fucking mannequin head got.
Yeah.
Like if you on paper, if you came to me and presented that idea, and I didn't know, I would be like, dude, you're a fucking crack addict. Like, seek help, get help. You want to come out with a decapitated mannequin head, and you think people are going to get over with that? Like, honestly, like I don't see how somebody could have like greenlit that thinking that would work.
Yeah.
Yet Paul Heyman did, and it fucking worked. I think that's sometimes the greatest ideas come from stuff like that. Like ideas that just nobody thinks sounds good on paper, and then when executed, on paper it sounds bad, and then in real life it just works out really, really well.
Yeah. That's like the funniest thing. It's like the gimmicks in wrestling that you think would be it's like what Triple H said one time. He's like, sometimes I'll look at a guy and go, yeah, he looks like $1 million. He'll make us money. He'll do great in the business. Turns out to be nothing. And then he'll look at somebody like John Cena and go, oh, you're nothing. You're not going to draw. You're not going to do anything, and ends up blowing up. It's the same thing with like gimmicks. It's like you got guys with these amazing gimmicks. Sometimes they don't get over at all. And you got these guys like going around here with mannequin heads or mop. Like Perry Saturn had mop. And then it got over, Dean Ambrose getting that plant over. It's like, you think like it's the weirdest stuff that would just
Jericho getting a list over. It's just you'd never think that would work, but it's just so fucking funny, and you've never seen anything like it. I think that's the thing too. It's creativity. Like if somebody else had done the list thing before, it's all right. We've seen that before. But what Chris Jericho was like, you know what? Let me try this every week. And first week it was, what the heck is this? The second week still, what the heck? And eventually, organically, just it's funny. It's like, oh my God, like this is actually really clever, And then to the point where it got so over, the only way to get heat from it was to not put somebody on the list.
Yeah.
You want to be on the list? I'm not going to do it. Boo! It's the only way to gain heat and traction heat from that now. That's
it was around that time that I realized I needed to get away from WWE because I was loving basically everything on Raw I was watching involved Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. And when that shit got buried, I'm like, I got to get out of here. If this shit's getting buried and the other shit's getting over, and I'm not over with the crowd, but if they're pushing other programs besides this, and they're pushing more for Goldberg at WrestleMania than this amazing stuff, then I'm sorry. I'll bounce from this, and, I'm fine. I didn't really get why they buried that angle. I never did.
They turned a world title WrestleMania main event into a fucking second match on the card for a United States title. Like, just weird. But I think, again, that's what Paul Heyman was genius about, was if something like that was given to him, he would use it. And he would use it, not just use it to use it, but use it well. That's a big difference, in my opinion. I really do. I think that's a huge difference.
Yeah. He would totally use that idea. Because he was the guy who would tell guys, here's the outline, just go do it. And they're like, well, what do you want me to do in this match? Like, just do something, do whatever you want.
Yes, and guys like Eddie and Chris and Lance Storm and even Jericho and Mysterio, I mean, all those guys passed through the doors of ECW at one time or another. They were pretty much told, go out there and be an artist. The canvas is your actual canvas. Go make a painting. Go make your masterpiece. And while ECW will get bad rap for, like you said, being the barbed wire and the tax and all this shit, like, and I get it. That's I can understand the criticism to a degree. Meanwhile, you did have great technical wrestling. You had bigger guys like Mike Awesome, Bam Bam Bigelow. You had fucking amazing storytellers like Raven and Tommy Dreamer, guys that could just go out there and talk you in to whatever match they were going to be in. And I don't think people nowadays really like well-rounded wrestling as much as they used to. Like if you look at ROH now, and even in the past 10 years, you rarely see the mastodon, the bigger guy, because they're not going to be. They don't like that style. The Braun Strowmans of the world, the Big Shows, Mark Henrys. That's not what ROH is about. They want smaller guys that can do athletic things in the ring. If they can talk on the mic, great. If not, we'll get them a manager. That's the mentality. And I love ROH. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it. But I think sometimes it's the same. It's two athletic guys. Why not have a bigger guy? Why not have a storyteller? Why not have a goofy guy with a fucking mannequin head that comes out and everybody can bring out their prop heads? I think ECW was just so well-rounded.
Yeah, it was everything. If you didn't like the violence, you could just watch the cruiserweight matches. If you didn't like the wrestling, you wanted more story, you could watch Sandman and Raven, or Tommy Dreamer and Raven, or Tommy Dreamer and hey, like a lot of feuds Tommy Dreamer did. So did Taz, like Taz and Bam Bam, Taz and Sabu. That fucking rivalry is amazing. And
it's a great rivalry, and neither guy really says that much. Sabu doesn't say a word, and Taz's promos, while they're really intense, they're not super long where you'd be like, okay, he can make a whole program out of this. No, it was just the iconic shot of Taz with his arms stand in the ring, the badass Taz, and then Sabu, doing this. That's all the story you needed for those two. That was just peanut butter and fucking jelly live in the center of a ring, and everybody could not get enough of it. That was the rivalry that would never die in ECW. And I think,
literally Taz's promo was what? Sabu, I'm going to tap you out. See you on the 13th. That's all he said. That was it.
And that's all that needed to be said. It sometimes, like, if you try to, again, he always says this, Paul Heyman, accentuate the positives, hide the negatives. Are either one of those guys going to talk you into the building? No. But what their actions can do, they speak louder than any words those two could say. And I think that's why those two, their rivalry stands the test of time, and why people are so drawn to it. It was just that chemistry, that iconic shot of those two standing toe to toe. It just never gets old. You literally can watch it for the first time. You could watch it for the 100th time, and every single time you're just as invested as the first. And that's not easy to do, but those two guys pulled it off. I think that Sabu is just one of the most fun people to watch ever. They'd wheel him out, and he was almost like a mental patient. Like, they were letting him out of the asylum just for this match, you know.
I love that. I love it so much.
That's genius. Genius. It's so good. Like, what a cool way to do a psychotic character instead of doing, like, you know, so many of the failed gimmicks that WCW, WWE tried to do. You know, like this is a guy that's actually fucking nuts and from an asylum. You know,
I mean, we were even talking, like, do you think that without ECW there would be that revolution in wrestling? Because WWF was in one direction, WCW wasn't that far behind it. I don't see them, and it was low. Like, business in the 90s was, I guess, at the lowest in the 90s. Well, almost. I mean, today is getting pretty low too, but in the 90s, though, it was a pretty bad time. I mean, without ECW, I don't think there would have been that spark lit, man.
No, it wouldn't have. It really wouldn't have. And even if you look at guys like Stone Cold, who was the head of the Attitude Era, like the face of the Attitude Era, he learned that attitude with Paul Heyman in ECW when he was working just basically promos because he was injured. He had the shoulder injury. Paul Heyman paid him once a week to come up and cut promos. And he cut some of the best fucking promos you could ever imagine. I was telling you, my favorite promo in the history of the business is the promo of Steve Austin talking about how he'll never be the common man that works 9 to 5. You common man, you punch a time clock, you go home, you get yelled at by some hag. I'll never do that, man. Just the intensity.
Emotion.
It's the emotion, the intensity that he makes you feel. That's what the Stone Cold character went on to be, especially after the injury with Owen. Like that, it had to be more of a character than a worker because he was very much more a brawler after that injury to SummerSlam 97. I think he learned that here. And I think that all of the things that the NWO and DX and Flipping the Bird and The Rock says, I don't think you'd have any of that without Bubba Ray Dudley. I don't think you'd have any of that without the homicidal, genocidal, suicidal Sabu. I don't think you'd have any of that without Taz flipping the bird.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did it first, and WWE and WCW did it in front of larger audiences. That's the thing. And you can argue who did it better. I do think in a lot of ways WCW didn't do it very well, and WWF did it well, and they put WCW pretty much out of business. But if ECW, I think, was on the grander scale like those two, I don't think there would have been any stopping them. I really don't. I really, really, truly believe that. If he had the money that Bischoff was working with at that time, I don't think there would be a WWF anymore.
No.
You don't.
If ECW would have had the funds that WWF did, and I understand that if they would have gotten bigger, they would have to tone it down. You'd have to, because there's no way to run something like that and have it that violent and that excessive, but do it in a way to where you get maybe 2 or 3 shows. Maybe 2 shows are the extreme stuff, and then you have one show, your flagship show, be the more TV 14 regular wrestling type stuff, but still have your show where you can call it ECW Underground, where it's the raw, like, just cussing, no blurps, on different TV station, real late at night. You can go watch ECW Underground, and then here's regular W. Kind of do what WWE did, just regular ECW, and have it be just matches and stuff like that. And you could find ways around it, and there are ways, because there's definitely been a lot of TV shows over the years that are pretty big, that are pretty violent, you know, and are still around today. And I feel like, to me, the one thing that sticks out, because you were talking about Steve Austin's promos, is I think that hands down, even to this day, the best promos I have ever heard are from ECW. Like, I'm over here listening to Cactus Jack's promos, and you know how today you're kind of watching promos on TV, you're like, it's interesting, yeah. No, when you're watching Cactus Jack, you're like, oh my God, like, he's so into it. Like, holy shit. He's spitting on WCW tag team belt and throwing it and talking about how he's, you know, your dad, you know, my little boy come up to me and said, Daddy, why you trading the contract? And you now we're living in a sweat box in Long Island, you know, and he's getting into it and he's punching himself in the face. I'm like, holy shit. And it's like, when it's over, even he's almost in tears. That's how he's into it. It's like, wow, man, like wow.
And the most important thing is the truth to it. That guy came
Yeah.
out there and not just was emotional, but he was truthful. That was really the
All
situation.
real.
He passed up all the guaranteed money for the opportunity. And he says something like, "Oh, I wrote my name on the dotted line to work for the worst, evilest man in the world." And some sellout that runs a bingo shop in Philadelphia. And the intensity he gives you, the emotions that run through his veins, that's real. I think, like you were saying, you could watch a promo and go, okay, it's scripted, or that's somebody delivering lines or whatever. None of that was scripted. Nobody told Cactus Jack to say that. Nobody told Stone Cold Steve Austin to say that. They just went out there and they did it. And even guys like, and I think one of the greatest characters ever in professional wrestling is Raven. That character was so perfect with the time.
So good.
Like, think about 90s punk. One of the first fucking things that come to my mind is Raven.
It's Raven. He embodies the grunge era. Like he is grunge to me. He to me is, when I think of the 90s, I think of like that grunge era. I think of him, and I love his style of promos, and that's why I'm hoping to homage him whenever I turn heel and whatever we're doing. I like that he wasn't just shouting and, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to break every bone in your body. And I'm going to take it to gates of hell. No, he's sitting there. He's got his hair down. He's in the darkness. He's like, Sandman, your son worships me now. I'm like, oh, shit.
That angle was classic.
Yeah. He's just like teasing him. He's getting that psychology game. He's like, divorce is your father's fault, right? And the son's like, I know. I'm like, oh my God.
They actually got his son to fucking play the part.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit.
Who does pretty good promos is me. Thank you. At the end of this, we could do promos. Maybe we do how about we do this? We do a promo battle at the end of this, off the cuff promo battle.
Hell
and then
yeah.
Whoever's here can vote on who won. That would be fun to do at the end of the show.
That'd be awesome.
But yeah, like he's saying that he was more grunge. Yes, he was perfectly grunge. Like, if you like, I'm personally not emo or whatever, punk rock. I like punk rock. I like some emo stuff, but like I wouldn't consider myself that. He was the living embodiment of that in a heel wrestling character. And it was just such an interesting, because we've seen the badass heel, we've seen the kick-ass heels, we've seen the whiny heels that have to have all the interference just to hold the title at the end of the day. And then the next night they come out in a fancy suit and tell you how great they are and how wonderful they were in the match, when it's all a lie, it's all a rouge. And that's the point. That's how you garner that heat. But I think that with Raven, it was just so real. And I love the storytelling between he and Terry Funk, where he goes off the promo. It's a great promo. He talks about all three. He talks about
my God,
Big Stevie Cool, and finally Terry Funk. And he says, oh, you remind me of my own father.
Yeah.
An old, weak, drunk man who I'm going to beat down worse than he used to beat me with his belt. And there's so much realism in that. Like to bring up that you were beaten as a child by your father with a leather belt, and to use that and to garner heat from it. That's just the performer really going above and beyond and digging into a part of themselves emotionally that, dare I say, I don't think I'm brave enough to do that. Granted, thankfully have never been beaten by my father with a belt, but if I had, I don't know if I'd want to go out and say that, but he did it and used it, and it works. It adds so much meat and potatoes to the final product. When you get to that match, you're like, this is really personal for Raven.
Yeah.
He sees his father in Terry Funk, this wrestling legend. And I don't know, man. Like that main event might be one of my favorite main events.
Oh my God, dude. It's so fucking, and what's so crazy is like Raven timed that whole main event in his head, because they only had that main event wasn't very long because they didn't have much time left in the broadcast. It was getting ready to get cut off. Yes. And he was like, okay, don't worry, Paul. I'll go in there and I'll do this and I'll do that. And I have it all in my head. And he was counting like 3, 2, 1, Terry pose with the championship. Young, I did it. End of program. And then after that, the power blew out. There was so much power.
Blew up.
Wow. Like, can you imagine that? I that's why I love ECW, man. It gets me hyped for wrestling. It gets me hyped for it. Whereas now it's like, I look at WWF and I'm like, if I went there, it'd be really cool. Or WWE, not WWF, but if I went to WWE and I'd be like, it'd be really cool, but you kind of know what to expect. With ECW, you never knew what you was going to get. You could be the man who gets to throw a fucking pot or a pan at someone's head in the crowd. You never knew what was going to happen, you know?
And they could work that into the finish. I could bring a Nintendo to the fucking ringside, hand it to Mikey Whipwreck. He hits somebody over the head with it, pins it for the 1, 2, 3. I help the finish.
Yeah.
Which is absurd, but it's ECW. It was like a religion. It was like a culture. It was not like what had become before it, and it was not like even anything that tried to mock it, imitate it, / rip it off in the future. It was really its own entity. And I love, like you said, with the generator, that's so ECW. All the things that went wrong for them, and all the things that ultimately had to go right for them. And the fact that they were in an old building, using an old generator, using up all that power for that one night to go global. 17 million possible homes could have bought this pay-per-view. And 10 seconds after they go off the air, the generator blows up. But it was almost like it was fate that it would hang on. It would hang on until the end so we could all see this wonderful, magical moment happen in front of our eyes. And I just think you couldn't write a better story than that.
It's great, too, because you're thinking, like, you look at these two young guys like Raven, who was dominating the championship scene at the time. And then you got, which even then, like Stevie Richards is like, man, what am I doing here? Like Tommy Dreamer isn't even in this match. Can you imagine being in his place and you're brand new and you have Terry Funk choose you? And you're like, oh, holy shit, dude. Like, I'm new here. Like, what do you mean? Like, there's Tommy Dreamer right over there. And I know we trust you. We choose you. And that to me is like something to where that would never happen today. They wouldn't go, oh, Sami Zayn, you get in the main event with blah, 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 and we trust you. They would not do that. Like, that doesn't happen anymore.
And there's a huge difference when you watch the actual match, right? Because I feel like if you looked at it now, if you fast forward to that match now, and you had those three guys, the odds-on cheered favorite would probably be Big Stevie Cool, only because of his youth. Wrestling fans now, we want to see youth again. It's just been the same shit, the same guys, Oldberg, Lesnar, and they were over at a time, and respectfully so. But if you look at that and how they booked it, like, even though Big Stevie Cool doesn't go over, and he's the first one eliminated of the three in the three-way dance in the main event, they really make it like he had a great showing. And even though it was defeat, it was victory in defeat, because he danced with two of the craziest, most hardcore son of a bitches to ever do it. And he held his own for however many minutes he was in the match. Vince doesn't get that. Vince doesn't get that psychology.
No.
It's not, let me put him over even though we're going to go with Terry. Vince's mind is always, let's go with Terry. Like, forget about everybody else. And that's like why I have a hard time getting invested anymore in anything other than the world title. It's because it's almost like presented like these people don't matter.
Exactly. And if you feel like it doesn't matter, then you don't want to watch it.
Yes, and honestly, was Big Stevie Cool probably ready for that? No. But Paul Heyman saw something in him. Paul Heyman said, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make you fucking a star. And it didn't end up happening, unfortunately, for Big Stevie Cool, but I think it's nice for him that he got that shot. He got that opportunity, and through booking was not buried in any way, shape, or form, even though he lost. In a lot of ways, it made it really look like he held his own with those two crazy son of a bitches known as Sandman and Terry Funk. I think it's one of the greatest main events ever. I think it really
absolutely
is.
And like the way they do it, they set it up to where, like, good God, like Terry Funk is losing gallons of blood and the whole canvas is covered in blood by Terry. And the way they had it set up to where it's a brutal, brutal match, and then somehow he ends up pinning Sandman, and you're like, holy shit. You're like, but Raven's going to get this win because look at Terry. He's barely alive. He's barely awake. it's gonna be Raven because WWE does that where they'll tease it and then oh nope, here comes the heel, he wins. So I was over here like, oh, because I didn't know Terry Funk won this. And I was like thinking, oh, Raven's gonna come in, roll him up, whatever, hit his finisher, and that's it. The way it ends with Terry Funk, I was like, whoa, what the hell? And everybody in the arena was like, ah. I was like, bro, I feel it. I feel it through, not to be like the ringmaster, feel it through your TV screen. But I feel that energy from the crowd. And I was like, whoa. And you're seeing the Blade, Terry Funk, his wife and daughters are up there. I did it. We all did it. We're all winners. Yeah, I love all of you. And then it ends. It's just
you
rocking.
You hear Dreamer on commentary, which is the only match of the night he was on commentary for, because it was Joey Styles. And what I love too is with Heyman fought for everybody. He wanted Rob Buffon to be the director because he was the director all the way. The pay-per-view companies didn't want anything to do with Rob Buffon. They didn't want anything to do with Joey Styles. They wanted to get a color commentator to go along with Joey Styles. And Heyman fought for each and every one of them because he was a loyal son of a bitch. At the end of the day, you call Paul Heyman a lot of things. You call him a liar. You call him a cheater. You can call him a weasel. But at the end of the day, he was a loyal son of a bitch, almost to a fault. And I think it's so nice that he stuck his neck out for them and he said, no, that's what got us to the dance. And don't kid yourself, this is the fucking big dance. I love that promo that he cuts, and I think that Dreamer on commentary adds so much emotion. Where I promised Terry I wouldn't step in, and then the flock comes and starts beating down Terry after he gains a little bit of momentum, and Dreamer comes away from ringside, cleans house, hits Raven with the DDT for the 1-2-3 for Terry Funk, and in a very different way than how you would do it, right? Like you wouldn't generally put a 50, however, I think he was 50 something years old when he won this title. When you put that guy over and you have him in the center of the arena chanting the name of the promotion with the fans, ECW, covered in blood, sweat, and tears that he had poured into this business. I think it's one of the best visuals of all time. And knowing that the generator blew up just seconds later, what a wonderful story.
Bro, I so wish that I could be in that arena that night. It'd be like watching one of your favorite teams score the last touchdown or the last home run. It's like you finally made it. You're the underdogs. You made it, and it's boom. So much power, so much stuff going on. It just implodes, man. And it's just like you're all there. And apparently they were all crying. They were all the wrestlers got in the crowd and everybody was hugging, and like that would never happen now. Like it would never be that personal. Whereas back then, these people eat, sleep, repeat ECW. And it was because of the fans that show got so big. They were writing to the pay-per-view companies like, hey, get this on pay-per-view. They were writing to the cable companies. Like this was real shit that the fans were doing. And it's just why, to me, nothing will ever be like ECW. There may be things extreme. There may be blood and guts wrestling, but there will never really be that ECW where it was like that special time. It was that lightning in a bottle that will never be recaptured again, to me at least, because they tried doing it with other ECW revivals. And for better or for worse, I just feel like they never really captured that magic again. The closest they got to it from WWE was probably this. This is probably the closest you're going to get to it. But besides that, I mean, really, and I do respect the other, like this. I do respect this, but I just feel like ECW was a very special time in pro wrestling.
It was a moment in time where it was like the fans knew what went into it, and they knew how hard everybody worked as a team. I know it was Paul's baby, but without Tommy Dreamer, you're not there that night. Without Rob Buffon, you're not there that night. Without, Sabu, Taz, all these guys that really helped make it and put it on the map. It was a 3.5-year journey of no money and mass transit incidents and trying to establish stars that were then stolen from them by the big bad wolves known as WCW and WWE. And to, on that night, give it to somebody who had been so unselfish like Terry Funk, and who in a time of selfish times, mind you, I mean, these are the times where Hulk Hogan didn't want to put anybody over. He didn't want to put Bret Hart over at SummerSlam 93. So he dipped before then. And then WCW signs him, and he didn't want to put anybody over there. And in a time where there were so many people worried about their spot, to give it to the most unselfish guy in Terry Funk and crown him the champion and the king of the hardcore in the sea of fans of watching hardcore, it's magical. It's one of my favorite visuals. It's one of my favorite shots in the history of professional wrestling is Terry Funk, covered in the flash bulbs and in the arms of the fans chanting the three iconic letters known as ECW. It's a great moment. It really is. To me, it's what's this pay-per-view apart. It's that emotional feeling you get when you watch it. Because I've watched it dozens and dozens upon probably over 100 pay-per-views in my life. WWE, WCW, ECW, Ring of Honor, IWA, all that shit. I've watched tons of pay-per-views in my life, wrestling-wise. But none of them, and I repeat, none of them give me that emotional feeling at the end like the ending of ECW Barley Legal 97. You can't recapture that because that was the culmination and payoff of a 3.5-year journey that all those people worked so hard to put together. It means a lot.
Absolutely. And like the fact that it was able to get off the ground as much as it did, and it's like pretty much I don't know about you, but I don't think there's a bad match on this entire card. Like
no.
There's fast matches, there's slower matches, there's matches that are like 3 minutes long but are still somehow good. There's like a fucking great grudge match in there. Like to me, Sabu versus Taz, one of the best rivalries I think I've seen. It's just
that's a main event. It's a main event in itself. And even like I think RVD versus Lance Storm is that the second match on the card. Even that, it's just it. And I believe Lance Storm was a fill-in for Chris Candido who couldn't be there that night. I don't know if he was injured or had prior commitments. I'm not sure why Candido didn't end up wrestling. This was a heel Rob Van Dam. Even that match, very much overperformed. And the chair shots from fucking Van Dam to Lance Storm and, the Van Daminator, the Van Terminator, all this stuff. And even stuff on there like the franchise Shane Douglas versus Pitbull number 2.
I was not even looking forward to that. I was like, oh, that's going to be a filler match. Ended up being a really good, slow, methodical match. And I love that because it slowed everything down from being this fast. Like, what do we have before that? The Michinoku Pro 6-man match. Lance Storm versus Rob Van Dam, Eliminators versus Dudley Boys. All very fast matches. And then you get to that match, and it's like, whoa. Like, it slows it down more psychological. And I thought it was a great match still.
Yes, and that's a way to get the franchise some heat. I remember when I first looked at this card, I was like, franchise versus fucking Pitbull number 2. That sounds like something that would be on the pre-show now.
Yeah.
I think there were pre-show. Thankfully, there were dark matches back then, but not pre-shows. And I think it's funny that match delivers it, but in a different way. Like the opening tag match has that energy. The Michinoku match has that style, that Japanese style that you
so good.
Mostly
such a good fucking match.
But they bring it to the States so they can kind of show off here. And then stuff like Rob Van Dam and Lance Storm, which had some great technical stuff, but also had some hardcore high flying. Not just high flying, but high flying with a chair involved. Just wild. And like I said, the Shane Douglas Pitbull number 2, I remember thinking, but they really made it an emotional story. Like Pitbull number 2 wants to get revenge for Pitbull number 1. And it was just like a really, really good little story there. And you can run through more. I don't know. What are the other matches? I can't positively remember every match in the card, but we've touched on most of them.
No, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you had the opening match, which the reason why I loved it so much is because you're thinking like, oh, Dudley Boys, Eliminators, they're going to destroy the Eliminators, like, whatever. It's the opposite. Yes. The Eliminators go in there and whoop their asses and send them going home with tails between their legs. And I was like, oh, I love it. And Eliminators were on point. They were hitting everything so clean. And then the Michinoku Pro 6-man match I thought was great, too, because you had Taka and they had so many great legends in there. Then you had Shane Douglas versus Pitbull 2, I believe, for the television title. Or if it wasn't, then it was. I know that
the TV title, I believe.
Yeah, I think Pitbull 2 won that match, right?
I thought the franchise won. I could be wrong.
Maybe he did. Maybe I haven't seen it in a minute.
Yeah, I
but
should have
remember it being
rewatched this
good.
pay-per-view, but if I had it, I would have totally. But I've seen it before. I've definitely seen this pay-per-view before. I like the standout to me is Taz Sabu, the main event, and RVD Lance Storm. Like that's
Yeah.
just like some of the best matches you could imagine. Just such good shit.
And you got that Sabu versus Taz, and then the main event back to back. So it was like you're getting like the greatest finale to a movie. It's like, how the fuck? I was like, how does the next pay-per-view top this shit? Like, what?
You can't. And like that's, I think, again, where he was a genius was structuring a card from top to bottom. Like now it's like WWE, they'll sell their biggest pay-per-view of the year. Oh, there's 4 main events. There's 2 world titles. There's 1 extreme match. And then there's either the women's match or, you know, a retirement match, or like they'll always have another stipulation. But here it's just like everybody kind of had their time to shine. There's not a squash match on this show, nor should there be on a big pay-per-view. And there's only 7 matches. There's only 7 main card matches on ECW Barley Legal 97, and they all deliver. There's not one match where I'm like, oh, this is a piece of shit, let me skip this. No. Like when I watch that pay-per-view, I watch the beginning, middle, end, and I enjoy it every time, and it builds up perfectly. We start, you know, with a tag match, then we add little RVD, heel RVD, and a good RVD heel promo, which I really like.
Oh yeah. RVD is worth more money here, and it's worth more money elsewhere. You sold out. With
Fonzie. He was a Fonzie. I believe was his manager. And fucking just a little bit of everything, a little taste of everything, and it really slowly built up to such a pinnacle of a main event that really delivered. Ty Junebug says, it really does sound like ECW just needed a better businessman to take them to the next level. Paul sounded like a really great creative mind, but he needed a Donald Trump type to take them to the next level.
Oh, I thought he needed a Donald Trump like inspirational tape. This is how you can, or instructional. This is how you budget your money.
Donald Trump makes a how to run a wrestling business tape. That would be fucking funny.
Let me tell you,
you're gonna do,
Paul, you need some points here, Paul.
$5 billion. That'd be fucking funny, man. Then Paul, you're gonna run for president of the United States.
You're spending it all. It's being all. It's like a boat with a hole in it, man. You're just sinking.
Dude, that's fucking hilarious. But no, he's right. Like he needed somebody to balance the checks. Like that's what you needed, because it's not like they weren't making money. Like they were okay. Were they making WWE WCW money? No. I mean the total attendance of this show was 1,100. Here, I can get it up. I had it up on my phone before. I forget the exact.
Well, it's also a smaller venue too. If they would have bigger arenas, they probably. But the venues were generally really small. And
that was the idea. Your people are clawing to get in, instead of what guys like Herb Abrams tried to do with was it the UWF, where he did pay-per-view and bought out huge buildings that he knew he was going to sell out. You know, that's the problem. Yeah, 1,170 people were in attendance of this. That's fucking wild.
And this is how you know it was a while ago too, because I think like the tickets were like $20 a piece for ticket, or not tickets. The pay-per-views were like $20 a piece.
66,000 in ticket sales. It earned the pay-per-view buy rate of 0.26, which is the equivalent of approximately 104,000 buys. So 104,000 times 20, because it was $20 to buy the pay-per-view. So let's do this. 20 times 104.
Holy shit.
So that's $2,080,000.
That is great, dude.
Plus the 66,000. So 66,000.
Yeah, and plus merch, and plus, you know, you can add in a lot of factors to that, because there's also a merch table. There's also, you know, a lot of things that play into the overall people paying money at the show, you know. And I would totally buy a ticket. I'd be like, yeah, give me that Sandman shirt. Yeah, give me that. And the thing is, if you ordered offline, they were packaging that and handing it, like they were doing that all themselves.
Yes,
all
it wasn't like they had people underneath to go, oh, you new guy, you put this together and ship these shirts out. No, Sandman was shipping his own shirts out. Tommy Dreamer was shipping his own shirts out. That's how much of a family mentality it was, even though they weren't a blood-related family.
Yeah.
These were family friends, basically, that were just.
Remember Lloyd Van Euren?
Yeah. It's just wild. It's so. Could you imagine fucking doing that? Like, that's just crazy. Like, you imagine going up to fucking Roman Reigns now and be like, "Oh, package your T-shirts," and you're gonna send them to.
You're like, oh, I have T-shirts.
That's your job. No. In this company, you want your merch to sell, you're gonna put it in the fucking box, tape it up yourself, and bring it over to the post office yourself.
Yeah.
That's the mindset, and nobody questioned it because nobody knew any better. It just was that way, and that's what I love about old school, and that's what I love about sometimes when places don't have as much money. Is it's just like there is nobody that knows any better. It's just you go with the flow and you deal with it, and you kind of step up and be a man about it.
Yeah,
I like that. I think that's.
And I mean, it's almost like Rocky 3, like what happened in Rocky 3, like. Rocky had the money, Rocky had the success, he lost the eye of the tiger. So it's like the more lower budget stuff has more of that eye of the tiger, whereas, you know, WWE has the big budget $1 million sets and the $1 million effects and all that. They ain't got to worry about that stuff. Whereas ECW, if they wanted pyro, they'd be like, all right, we're using pyro, but one time for the pay-per-view, and that's it. You know, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do pyro, you know?
Yeah, if I'm selling $66,000 in tickets and the pyro, add the pyro on top of that, that's a lot of fucking money to take out of 66 grand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay, we can do pyro for $100. Like, you want to do WWE WrestleMania pyro? It's like 10, 12K easy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for all the fucking pyrotechnics that they do in fucking Orlando and the Superdome and all that shit, that's costing crazy money. I mean, that's a sixth of your fucking ticket sales, and you can't do that. You just can't. You know, when you're making $2 million in pay-per-view buy rates, you can't afford to do that much pyro. But at the end of the day, they couldn't really afford to pay their wrestlers either.
No. And that was like Spike Dudley. He was in an interview. He's like, that's when you're eating, you know, tuna out of the can and rice every week because that's all you can afford. And I was like, wow, like, can you imagine though? It must have been a really fun and a really great job because you weren't getting paid anything half the time. You were working for free, but you're getting TV time and you're getting all that chance to be a part of something like that. It makes you want to question yourself, go, if I was there, would I quit or would I stay till the end? Because if you stayed, you could have been a part of something so historic and great. But if you left, you'd be getting money, but would you be as happy at WCW as you would at ECW? You know,
and that's the difference, I think, from being like a kid to turning into an adult. Like ECW, in a lot of ways, was the children's playground, and you could run and do what you wanted to do, and you were maybe getting some allowance money. But with WWE or WWF at the time, WCW, you could get the big adult money. But you had to have a boss and you had to listen and you had to do what they told you. And if you went against the script, you could very well come back to gorilla position and get fucking fired. Like, it's a very fine line between adult and kid. And I think that ECW, that's why I love it so much. It was almost just like, let the kids play. Let the kids have a fun time. But I agree with you. Like, if you're asking me that question, if you said, Grande, yeah, you have the choice to be making $350,000 a year, sitting fucking comfortably, eating steak and lobster every week, chilling with a family, maybe a couple kids, maybe you have a fucking mansion. You could do that, $350K a year. You can't, even back then, you adjusted to inflation, that's even more money then than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it would be the same drive in me as a performer. I would probably rest a little bit on my, laurel. Like, you'd have to. Like, if I'm eating that every week and I have all these nice luxuries, am I going to be as motivated? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think eating fucking tuna fish out of a fucking can and maybe having 2 pieces of bread to your name, that something about that motivates you to be bigger, to be better, to earn more money.
It didn't like CM Punk say, like, that's what he loved. He's like, I love the travel, the struggle, the eating the rice, the whole life of it. I love it.
Edge too, yes.
Yeah.
It adds
and I feel like a lot of people complain about that as wrestlers, but some people embrace it. If I could get into shape and I could really embrace that lifestyle, I would, because man, you're going out there, the audience, you know, you're loved, you got promotion you're wrestling for. Like, I would fall in love with that if I had the opportunity, man.
I would take pride in it. I get it. Like, I know, and there have been guys like, and we could talk a little bit about this too, about people that bash ECW, like Kevin Nash.
Oh
I
yeah,
know Jim Cornette, and I love Jim Cornette. I actually really like
yeah,
Nash too. But you know, there's tons of guys that bash it.
Jerry
Nash mainly
Lawler.
for the business side because he was a big money guy. Like he went over to WCW after Scott Hall signed. He got the Favored Nations contract where Scott was making 400,000. So then Nash automatically, because of the Favored Nations contract, had to be making 400K. And then they signed him another $400,000 just to sign hard copies because WWF did the thing where fake Diesel and Razor, they're coming back, and WCW was like, oh my god, like they're gonna leave us. They just destroyed our whole company, and that literally cost them $800,000. Fake, probably much more than Glenn Jacobs and I forget the guy who played the fake Razor. May he rest. I know he's passed away. May they rest in peace. I'm sure 800K is a lot more money than they ever saw at those times. Maybe Kane has caught up to it now, but it's just wild. It's just such a different mentality. Like Nash looked at it purely as a business, and guys like Dreamer, guys like Taz, guys like Terry Funk, they looked at it more as an opportunity to be loved and leave a legacy. And like as much as I like Kevin Nash, I would argue that more people would freak out if they saw Tommy Dreamer now.
Yeah.
Tommy, you know, the respect that guy demands, it's, I think, way more than a guy like Kevin Nash.
Yeah. There's this really emotional part in this documentary, which, by the way, John, I would check this out because it basically fills in all the gaps that the other DVD didn't. Like, they didn't have Raven interview. They didn't have Sandman. They didn't have all. They do in this. And even though there's no footage of ECW, there's pictures. It's basically all the gaps they didn't fill in for that. So this is a good part two if you want to check it. It's for free on YouTube if you want to check out.
I put it on my watch list on. I just didn't have enough time today. Like today was crazy, but I did watch that documentary of like what led up to this pay-per-view.
Yeah, well, I recommend it. It's like a good part two to that documentary, and there's a moment in the documentary that it ends the documentary, and it's really good. It's really emotional because it's right before this, and as we know, Terry Funk is in this. And he was like, the documentary had music and all that, and the music just went away, and he just sitting there, and he's like, well, really, at this point in my career, what do I do? Do I stay and help out an organization that I love because of just how much passion I have for it, or do I get this payment to go to a ECW like hybrid show, basically? Like it's it's not really a hybrid, but it's like can't find the word. He was basically saying like it's not a foolproof ECW. It was a different version of it. Do I go out? Do I get this money and go to this watered down product version of it, or do I stay and go to? I think it was some other promotion that was doing ECW type stuff too, and it was to honor that. And it was like, well, what do I do? Do I honor this, or do I take the money and go and do that? Like, it was at a tough spot, and it really put in perspective to me, like, just wow, like how many times these pro wrestlers might have these tough decisions to make. Like, do I stay because I love it, or do I go and get the money? Like, that's just how it is, the business.
I know, and I hate that side. I hate that. I'm not a business person. Like, I don't like it. I just think it sours what you're doing. Like, I would take pride in my work, not what I'm being paid or not what I want to be paid. Or I just like, I know a lot of people disagree and then probably call me stupid for saying that, like Nash included. Nash is a guy that, you know, he laughs at the whole ECW thing. And I know there are quite a few that do. Just strictly for the money. And then there are guys like Cornette who just hates the whole thing. I Bret Hart too. I believe Bret Hart hates the whole idea of ECW.
Jerry Lawler too, right?
They've called it wrestling pornography. Almost like, you know, in horror we call it torture porn. In, you know, wrestling it's pretty much called ECW. I get where they're coming from, and I don't think that they don't make like completely inaccurate statements. But at the end of the day, it's just like, I think with Cornette especially, he's very much into the old school mentality and that regional promotion type of deal. I don't know if he fully understood what Heyman accomplished and what Heyman was going for. I get it. Like his whole problem is, oh, why do they chant the name of the promotion? Because that's what sets this apart. We're not chanting "Go Ricky Go." We're not chanting "Let's go Cena. Cena sucks." We're chanting ECW because we appreciate what they've given to us as a whole. Like nobody, you're never going to see anybody chant WWE. You're never going to see anybody chant WCW. ECW was always just like an entity. It was like, this is a culture we're chanting about. And that's what I think set them apart. But there's some guys that just don't have, the easiest time believing that. What do you think of the whole opposite, the opposing side, the people that put ECW down, like a Bret Hart, like a Jim Cornette, like a Kevin Nash? Like, what do you think of? Do you think they have any good points? Do you think they're just absolutely completely bullshit?
I mean, if I would put myself let's say back then, if I put myself in one of the wrestlers' shoes and Paul Heyman promised me a certain amount of money and he didn't give me it and I got screwed over in a deal, I could see being upset about that. I could see about being and holding a grudge to that. But as far as as let's say I was in like WCW and I was looking at ECW and would I talk down onto it? I really wouldn't, and I really don't see what people looked at it, and I could see like maybe how I did, where I was like, oh, what is it? Just barbed wire and that's it? Just a bunch of guys going through barbed wire and that's the gimmick of the show? Like I didn't mean to be disrespectful about it, but I didn't know because at the time, after ECW came out, you got to understand, WWE was doing the whole hardcore stuff. You had all kinds of companies going hardcore, and I was like, oh, is this just another one of those, go to the table type? But I didn't realize it all started with ECW, and very few companies before ECW was doing this stuff. And for them to look at the company and call it extremely crappy wrestling and say that there's nothing special here and, oh, it's just about gimmicks. And I'm like, nah, man, because it's not all about, if they say that, to me, they need to really sit down and analyze this company and watch pay-per-views and watch shows. And then I think maybe they would have a little bit more respect for it. But if even by then they still say, oh, it's just extremely crappy wrestling, I just personally disagree. I don't understand it. And it may not be as HD. It may not be as crisp and clear. It may not be as flawless. There's a lot of flaws in there as far as production. Like you watch, you're like, oh, it's VHS quality, which I love. Oh, the audio, yeah. The audio is glitched up and it's staticky, but I love that. It's it's if you like it. Not everybody's gonna like punk or disco or everybody has their own taste and stuff. And I don't know, man. I really don't see why they would look down on it. I mean, it's a lot more than just barbed wire and taped fists and baseball bats and stuff like that. It was like you said, it was a culture. It was a lifestyle, man.
I think it's a lot like too with, like I was saying before, with the torture movies. Like if you just said that Saw was a torture movie, well, no, like there's so much to it. There's really, really good acting. There's a really, really good story. There's a good psychology. There's a message there of people who don't value their life as opposed to people that, do. And I think that in a lot of ways, ECW is that equivalent. Now, are there promotions? Are there movies that just straight up are extremely crappy wrestling or extreme torture? Yes, there are. But I don't think it's fair to really lump ECW in that same category because I think it really meant a lot for a lot of different people's lives. Like I love, I believe it's Dawn Marie on that Rise and Fall ECW documentary. She says, it really taught me to value what I have today because it may not be there tomorrow. And she couldn't have hit the nail any better on the head about that. She's so right. Like this was a product of its time. This was a product of its time that wasn't even loved by all these guys we mentioned at the time or even all these years later. But here we are some almost 25 years after this pay-per-view aired, and we're still here talking about it, putting it over. So they must have done something right, you know.
Yeah.
That whole legacy that it's left behind, it's not really lost on us. I think in a lot of ways it changed the game. It really did, and I think in a really good way. I mean, uh, Vince can say what he wants, Bish can say what he wants, but at the end of the day, I think they borrowed a lot from this, and I think without this,
Yeah. Without ECW, wrestling wouldn't have done as much as it did, and you can see where ECW's influences were, and even the biggest promotion like WWF, WCW, you've seen it there. Without ECW, I don't think we would have wrestling where it is today. There would not be that hardcore style that would be so easily approached in wrestling. Like back then, wrestling didn't really have any blood. There wasn't a lot of brawls like that, and I just think it revolutionized wrestling, and I think it deserves a lot more credit than people give it.
yes, I agree. Considering the money that he had nothing but creativity and talent that would work for next to nothing. And he somehow changed the game despite all of the things that probably really shouldn't have happened. He made them happen because sometimes, your visions and stuff, they can be grand. They don't just always come true. But this was thankfully a vision that came true. And I don't think that it's lost on either one of us. Like I was saying before, I really don't. I think it's one of the best moments that this business and the wrestling business has ever really had. It was this little promotion running in the Hammerstein Ballroom or Bingo Hall, and it just kind of set the world on fire. It became this whole religion that people love to do. I mean, if you look in the crowd, like you could see some of the same exact fans sitting in the same spots. Like you have that guy with the long hair and the sunglasses. You've got that guy with the fucking hat. And Heyman at one paper, he's like, you're the craziest bastard and I love you. Like, that's what it was. You see this, like, now you have the guys in WWE with the green shirt guy, and he's always there at every show. But it's not the same impact that these people had. It was almost just like, this is it. This is our culture. This is our way of wrestling. And I think there was something really special about it. I get the people that put it down. I hear their gripes, but all due respect to them, I think wrestling needed it. It really, really needed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's just a really cool thing to look back on, and it's a cool thing to get interested in because a lot of guys that I know who are hardcore WWE fans still they're like, oh, you like ECW? You watch ECW quite a bit? I'm like, yeah, and they're like just watch the documentaries, man. Watch and listen to the stories, and you'll get hooked into it. It's just it pulls you in. It's like, oh, I don't know if I like this very much or not, and then before you know it, you'll be a fan and you're into it.
Yes, definitely. It won me over. That documentary, it's for my money, it's one of the best documentaries ever made. It's that or Crystal Lake Memories for me. Like, just because they're both so in depth, they don't forget
Top
about it.
Top two favorites.
Yeah, that's it. Like horror, Crystal Lake Memories, wrestling, ECW, The Rise and Fall. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So like, I guess we could touch on a couple things here that I said before we might talk about Mass Transit. Would you want to talk about Mass Transit really quick?
Oh, God.
Some crazy shit. Explain to the listener. I know Ty has pretty much been the only person. Johnny was here before we went live, but I guess he didn't want to wait. But
they're all like, oh, talk about wrestling.
It's also Saturday night, so I'm guessing people are out or whatever, but hopefully people catch the replay or whatever. But I don't know. I don't give a shit. Like I was saying this before on the 100th episode of my show. Like, that's why I love this. Just the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Just talking.
It's
like
a blast, man. It's been so fun so far, dude. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, anytime, man. You're always welcome on my show. And also, everybody, before we get into Mass Transit, the HorrorBoy, he's doing a live fan commentary tomorrow night for Return of the Living Dead. So that's going to be really fun. I don't know who you're having on, but I will certainly be tuning into that. I don't know if I'll say the whole time, but I will definitely be tuning into that for a little bit and hearing your thoughts.
Hey, the link will be in the chat. Anybody can join. If anybody wants to jump in, you guys can. I'm making an open link commentary. So
wow, that's going to be wild, man.
Anything could happen.
Anything
on
goes.
Sunday night, HorrorBoy.
No holds barred.
Extreme Rules.
Extreme Championship, Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah, it's a good combo, man. And I was thinking, like, man, like I want to do a commentary on something. I'm like, man, talk about ECW. Let's go some punk rock zombies, man. The Return of the Living Dead. It's a good combo right there.
Yeah, I mean, you do an Extreme Championship Wrestling tonight and then Punk Rock Zombies tomorrow. Like, I mean, is that not? I think that's pretty perfect if you ask me. A perfect.
It's like lamb and tuna fish. What you like? Spaghetti and meatball?
You know, it is. It really is. I think it's nice too. Like, and I know I talk horror mostly on my channel, but I love your love for the business of wrestling. Like, and I honestly, when I first started this, I intended to do way more wrestling than I ever do. I've deleted some. I used to review some pay-per-views. I've gone back, deleted some of those. I wasn't really happy with how I delivered the reviews, but like wrestling and horror to me, the reason I'm such a big fan of the two is like when the both are good. Like if you walk out of the theater after seeing a great horror film, and if I turn off, like the other night you sent me that fatal 5-way match that NXT in your house, and you were like, John, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
The feeling you get after seeing a great match or a great pay-per-view or a great horror film, wherever you are, whether it be the theater, whether it be on your couch, I don't think there's any two highs in the world that get me to that point that those two do. And I love that you appreciate both, man. It's really nice to see somebody like me that does love them both as much as you do.
No, yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And like, that's why I get mad at WWE. I'm like, man, why can't you guys be good?
Yeah. It's such a disappointment. I don't know. It is, but it's
no, my friends are like, oh, it is pretty decent. I'm like, watch NXT. That's fucking great. Because when you compare it, it's like, man, it's like you got Triple H over here doing this. You got Vince over here doing this. It's like, God, I would go for this other product so much.
Yeah, it's not even the apples and oranges comparison. It's apples and fucking rotten oranges comparison. It's just
apples and shit.
Yeah, apples and diarrhea, man. It really apples and corn turds. It really, really is that far of a polar extreme to me. But tell me your thoughts on mass transit. I guess that could be. I don't know if you want to talk about anything else on here, but I figured we'd touch on that because I did mention it before.
Oh no, yeah, that's crazy. I was watching this documentary, the Rise and Fall of ECW, and I was like, over here, like it got really serious. It's like there was this accident that happened, and this guy lied about his information. I'm like, whoa, we just went from funny ass stories to like turn way down the music, got all dark and cold. I'm like, what the fuck? And they're like, it was basically the scariest thing I've ever witnessed in the ring. He got cut open. I'm like, what the hell? And they skim past it. They're like, let's just skim past this real quick. Let's bring it up and skim right past it. I'm like,
it was like,
I want to know more. What the hell happened?
Like, this happened. Boom.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that happened. Mass Transit and our pay-per-view company said that, and I was like, okay, so obviously something happened here, and so I researched it, and good God, that's crazy. The guy basically lied about his age, said he was like 19 or 18. He's actually like what, 17?
17. But he was like 300 pounds, over 6 feet tall. You'd never know.
And he gets backstage and he's, you know, smoking cigarettes in the locker room, and he's just saying, hey, I want to do this spot. And they're like, well, no, we want to do this. He's like, no, you do that spot, I do this spot. And they're like, hold the fucking phone, buddy. Like,
he's saying all this shit to New Jack.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. May he rest in peace. But New Jack is a crazy motherfucker. And he's like, hey, New Jack, would you mind? I'm afraid to blade myself. Would you mind cutting me? Granted, I know New Jack's gone now. May he rest in peace. If I ever asked fucking New Jack to fucking cut me open, I would ask the nearest person to escort me out of the building and drive me as far away from New Jack as I can fucking go.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, man. Shit's crazy. Like, how stupid was he? Like,
he had to have known very little, because to me, as wrestling fans, you know the rules. You know the rules of the locker room. You know the rules of respect. You know how the veterans are. And for that guy to get back in there, lie about all that stuff, and get access to the locker room, first of all, that just shows you the lack of security on ECW's part.
And the lack of checking. They didn't even check the guy's license. They didn't check anything.
Yeah, there's no way because unless he had a fake ID, which I doubt he had,
He didn't know.
They just believed him that he said he was. Oh, I'm this guy, and I was trained by Killer Kowalski, and it's like, yeah, but I'm sure you were.
Yo, Nate, I was trained by Killer Kowalski. If I didn't tell you.
And they were saying he's like I wrestled all these people, I've done this and that, and there was this like little wrestler with him that was giving him all this points, like, yeah, he did do this, and they let him in, and good God, man,
yeah,
it's just like he got in the ring, man. It's like you don't ever ask a wrestler. It's like common sense. You don't ask somebody else to cut you. You blade yourself. That's how it is. But the dude didn't even know that, so. The fact that he was able to get in there at all and even last 5 seconds in a wrestling ring, to me, is what was shocking. And it's just when you really listen, they go even more in detail with it in that documentary, the other documentary, Forever Hardcore. They go into like how it happened and what it looked like, and there's clips out there of it, and you just see him get slit, puts his head down, looks up, and it's just a fountain of blood coming out of his forehead. And he's screaming, and it is brutal. It's probably one of the most brutal things I've seen because it's real. You're looking at it
like nerve damage too in his head, right?
Yeah, New Jack said you could see his skull. He split him so deep you could see his skull, and it was like, yeah, that's why like that's one of those things where you look at it and you go, okay, don't do this, guys.
Yeah, no, that's like where I could see somebody knocking, like you're just giving that's ammunition for anybody who didn't like it, like. Oh, you didn't check the guy's age. Oh, you put him in there with New Jack. Oh, he was talking all this shit, and New Jack being New Jack fucking went ahead and cut him open and literally put his life in danger and actually beat the shit out of him instead of just, work. In front of the guy's family, nonetheless. His dad and mother, I believe, were in attendance, and you can hear on the tape the dad screaming for them to fucking stop the fight. He's like, stop the match. Like, holy shit. Like, you could tell even by watching it how fucking bad it was. So it's pretty scary. They went to court over that, and that almost cost them doing this pay-per-view. But, that's definitely one of the few knocks I get. Like, it's just like, Jesus Christ, you should have fucking made sure that he was older, and you never should have put him in there with somebody like New Jack that was just going to fucking, and actually fucking put the guy's life in danger. Like,
it was a disaster waiting to happen.
Bret Hart, that's one thing. Like, Bret Hart's gonna try to work with the guy and make it work, but put him in somewhere with a fucking scalpel knife, that shit's not gonna end too well, and it didn't, unfortunately, man.
He picked the worst wrestler in the world to have that match with. Really bad timing.
Yes, yeah, I know. I believe. And they never ever mentioned this on the documentary. I believe wasn't Devon Dudley Mass Transit's partner?
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking crazy.
And Devon was like, that was just one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen in the ring. And I'm like, wow. Just
is Devon on Forever Hardcore?
Because I don't think he's. They basically got everybody that wasn't on the other DVDs. So the guys. Like, Paul Heyman's not on that one. Devon isn't on that one. But Bubba Ray Dudley's on. No, Bubba Ray Dudley isn't on that one. Sabu is. Sandman is. They got New Jack interviewed. He's like, I cut that dude. He's like, I didn't. He was like, even saying, I don't care if he dies or whatever. And he was like, he didn't care. He just cut him. And he got out of there. Like, he got the fuck out of the arena because he knew he was going to get arrested for that shit. So he darted, man. And it was just crazy because you're like, when you first hear about it, like, what is the mass transit incident? And you're thinking, like, that actually happened. Somebody got in there, got backstage, was acting like he knew what he was doing. It's just, like, scary because, goddamn, man, like, it's crazy. It's an absolutely crazy incident. But it shows why security at shows are important, and it shows why you leave the stuff like that to the professionals. You don't get in there and act like you're doing it with them because they'll put you on earth real fast. Like,
exactly. It's not something you should mock. Like, I know a lot of people just, oh, it's shit's fucking fake. I mean, I would never mock New Jack to his face. I would never mock New Jack, period. But people probably have done it and paid severe consequences.
That wasn't the only time he did something like that either. He like stabbed some other guy with the Wolverine claw.
The guy, he wasn't selling. You ever see that? Like, the guy wasn't selling for him, and he was like an old school wrestler. I mean, the guy was like in his 60s, and the
Yeah,
guy's
he
whole
beat
gimmick
the
was he
shit
wouldn't
out of
sell,
him.
and fucking nearly murdered the guy. Like, it's
He
not
took
funny,
the
but it's fucked
chairs.
up.
He wasn't holding back at all. He was trying to, yeah. He was nearly killed that dude.
Too far. Like, may he rest in peace, but too far. Like that, he took it shit too far. Like that's a
Yeah.
guy where I understand where someone was like, oh, it's just torture. Yeah. However, though, New Jack was a great promo. New
Yeah.
Jack knew how to get heat. Like he was an underrated promo. He just, I think he was actually like mentally like disturbed. Like I don't think he was all there, you know, and probably that helped him get over in some ways. But working with him, I would never want to do that. I mean, not for you'd have to
No.
pay me 8 figures to work with New Jack.
Because you'd be scared to fuck up. You're like, if I botch one thing, I'm gonna get fucking killed in this ring. So, like,
I would sell my ass off for him. I'll tell you that, man.
Finger poke of doom, that shit.
Yeah, for real. I don't want to get a fucking X-Acto knife to my fucking head so you see my scalp, bro. And if I do, I want at least 8 figures for it. So
I seen another video that there was it was like a young dude, and he wasn't. I don't know if he wasn't signed for New Jack, but he pissed New Jack off. New Jack had this partner hold him, took a chair, and literally hit this kid so hard his skull split, and there was blood. It was like, oh my god, the kid fell out of the ring. Huh?
I've not seen that, man. If you have that, send that to me. That's crazy.
It's horrible. And like the other guy's like, we need to stop this. Like, no, this is bad. We need to stop this fucking match right now. And it was crazy. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Joey Styles for the fucking win, man. I think he was such a great announcer. And like, don't you think too, it's incredible how he did it alone? Like, hey, he did all the commentary for these shows by himself.
Like, that's unbelievable to me. I always thought, like, oh, didn't he have like Paul Heyman there? It's like, no, like he did it all solo. And he always, to me, whenever I think of ECW, you can have, you know, guys like Taz come in and do commentary too, which is great. But I've just always thought of like Joey Styles as the commentary guy. He's the voice of ECW, kind of like how Michael Cole is the voice of WWE, whereas Joey Styles is the voice of ECW.
Yes.
Welcome to Barley Legal. You know, pay-per-view. ECW's first pay-per-view.
The best, man. Joey Styles is just legendary, and I think that that's the
Hurricane Rana off the car onto the concrete.
Oh my god, that Sandman is going crazy. I would have loved to know, like, I don't know if he was there doing commentary the night that they did the whole putting the Sandman on the cross and Kurt Angle walked out of the building. Could you imagine, like, Kurt Angle's like a big, like, Christian, like, conservative guy, like, and I love Kurt Angle, and like he was there and he was behind the scenes, and like they did this whole thing where they put the Sandman on the cross and wrapped him in barbed wire, like Raven did this. And fucking Kurt Angle freaked out. He walked up to Paul Heyman. He was like, if my fucking name gets on this and any of my association gets on this, you'll be hearing from my fucking lawyer. And they lost Kurt Angle because of that. Like, that's another thing where, like, oh my God, imagine if they didn't lose Kurt Angle. Like, wow, like, who knows what he would have done there? Like, it just.
I'm pretty sure he would have debuted there.
Yes, definitely. Sure. Would he have stayed? I don't think Kurt would have stayed if there was no money. Like, I think if he even had one bounce check, I think Kurt would have left. But that's fucking crazy too. To just be like, do like an actual storyline / gimmick that offended somebody so bad that they fucking quit the company. and that's not something that WWE wouldn't do. Like, didn't they have Stephanie McMahon and
they've crucified people before. Like, they've had
Darkness after that. Same shit, you know. And Kurt didn't have a problem being associated with them, so. I don't know. It just goes to show you how much more hardcore ECW did it as opposed to how goofy, in a lot of ways, the Ministry of Darkness and Vince McMahon did it.
Yeah, I think it was just also because with the Ministry, they were trying to make it more about the cult, whereas here he literally had like a crown of barbed wire and was literally like that. And it really is a disturbing image. Like, when you really look at it, you're like, wow, it's a disturbing image. But like... the fact that they were doing that is, and I heard that like that threw them off at every TV station. The lesbian angle threw them off at every TV station.
I'll take them both. I'm hardcore.
Yeah.
Yay, Tommy.
It's not a he,
I have
Tommy.
another.
Oh, it's not a he.
It was Beautiful Beulah and what was the other lady's name? Was she the animal or something? It was something like really funny like that. Like I forget the other lady's name. But he ended up marrying Beulah McGill.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's actually his real life wife and everything.
Yeah, no, it's cool. He lives right around me. Like he's been like when Jericho's band came to play, I saw him. He was right there. He was right behind us.
Really?
Tommy Dreamer, yeah. My friend got a picture with him. Unfortunately, I didn't know until after. And my friend was like, dude, there's Tommy Dreamer behind us. Like, no fucking way. And he was like leaving. So I didn't know what was happening. But no, really cool. Yeah, hopefully I run into him someday around here. I think it'd be really nice.
That's badass.
Dude, yeah, for real.
That's awesome.
But is there anything else you wanted to talk about on here tonight that we didn't cover? I know we didn't do the straight up standard, like go match by match, but that's the thing I like about this. It's just more of like a hangout discussion, just two guys shooting the shit on some wrestling. And I enjoy. I don't know. I feel like if we went match by match, it would just be like standard a little bit. You know, like I kind of like that we just did more like an open discussion.
No, yeah, it was great. We had a great kind of retrospective tonight of just the history of ECW, and I'm glad that you love ECW as much as I do, because you know it's hard to find those really good wrestling fans now, because a lot of people were just like, oh, I just watch WWE, or oh, I just watch, you know, maybe NXT, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's like not a lot of people just go back and appreciate ECW for what it did and acknowledge ECW, you know, believe ECW. But like, you know, it's been fun, man. It's been great. Just thank you, man. I really appreciate for you having me on here. It's been fun. I've had an absolute blast.
Yeah, and you know, I wouldn't be opposed to doing like maybe down the road, maybe we do retro wrestling nights where we maybe talk about an era or an angle, or even maybe just go through somebody's career, like a career retrospective. I feel like that'd be fun, like talking about somebody's various feuds. Like
Absolutely,
it would be fun to do John Cena, like just because of like how oh my god, how many fucking feuds that guy's been in.
Yeah. Oh man, it'd be like over here 4 hours in, and then he beat this guy, and then he buried
Sandow.
Yeah.
And I got pissed again.
Then he buried Bray Wyatt.
And then I got pissed again. Then he buried Rusev. We could go on forever with that. I remember the funniest John Cena gimmick though, or angle, was him and Carlito. And like they did this whole storyline where John Cena was in like a club, and Carlito like stabbed him in the fucking kidney.
Yeah. Holy shit. That escalated quickly.
Stabbing people in the kidneys? That's not cool. I love Carlito, man.
And me too. The people are like, he just had an apple. I'm like, bro, he's personality, man. He's great. I love Carlito.
That would be cool. First respect to my favorite wrestler, The Undertaker. Dude, that we would have to be on here for about 2 days to do his entire career.
Yeah, I love Undertaker, man.
Oh, me too. We could do that. That one we'd have to do in parts, but we could totally do
it. Right? Early days, middle days, then towards the end, you know, type thing.
yeah, no doubt. But definitely down the road, I'd like to do that. I'd like to integrate more wrestling back on my channel again, and especially with you, because I know you love it as much as I do. So I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank Ty. Ty stayed with us the entire 2 hours. That means a lot to me, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. If anybody wants to catch this rerun, of course, it'll be uploaded right as soon as we go off the air. I'll be sure to promote it on Instagram and all that good stuff. But Nate, thank you so once again for coming on, talking all things ECW. And we will catch you next time. And you guys can catch Nate tomorrow on his channel, TheHorrorBoy. He's going live. I don't know what time. What time are you going live tomorrow?
Probably same time as tonight, maybe like 9 or 10, 8:30, somewhere around there.
9 or 10.
When the sun has gone down and the night crawlers come out.
Yes, let them come out of the graves and party all night long. All right, though, we will catch you next time, only on the Graveyard. Too sweet, peace, and we'll catch you next time. For life, brother. For life.
Wolfpack for